Of the meeting. I'm the chair, Rick Lipoff. The vice chair is in the chamber, Councilor Andrea Kelly. We also have Alicia Bowman and Tariq Lucas. And on Zoom, we have Councilors Chris Markowitz, Mark Laredo. Not on the committee, but here with us is Pam Wright and President Albright. And on the committee, Councilor Downs. Am I missing anybody else? I got everybody. From the Law Department, we have Jonah Temple. And from Planning, we have Kat Kemet and Katie Wewell and Michael Gleba. And, okay, we'll deal with the Planning Board later on. Okay, the first item of the night is 43-23 Newton Walnut Street LLC, a request for extension of time to exercise permit 320-20 at 1149, 1151 Walnut Street. Good evening, Mr. Schlesinger. You know how to do that, don't you? There's a little button right up top. It's been that long since you've been in, huh?
There it is, I got it. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I just wanted to come this evening in person because I haven't been before you in person in 3 years. And that just seems like a really long time.
It is.
And I'm happy to be in this room after a long time. This is a petition for an extension of time, special permit for the 25-unit project at 1149 Walnut Street in Newton Highlands was granted in May of 2021 by Zoom. And it did not get a COVID extension because of the timing of the permit. It got an extension for some period for litigation, which was decided. But the current, the changes in the economic system, which I'm sure you're witnessing throughout the city, interest rates and construction costs have made it very difficult to go. We've seen some progress lately, hoping to get the project underway, but would ask for an extension for the full 3 years from the initial grant, plus litigation. So it was we didn't ask for it at the time, and probably should have.
Okay. So an extension of time, pretty straightforward. Nice to see you after 3 years. A little more housekeeping. We are video and audio recorded live right now on New TV. And we also have our clerk, Dominic Warren, here. And Peter, what is your last name? Peter Coe from the clerk's office as well. Mr. Warren, can we do this by voice vote? We can. Oh, we have two hands up that would like to discuss. Councilor Laredo.
Thank you. So are there any businesses or anything else operating in the property right now?
I believe there is a tenant in what was formerly the gas station, the art store, but I'm not, their tenancy was contingent. I'm not sure. I can get back to that.
And when do you think your client's gonna actually start work on the project?
When I spoke to them today, they would be hoping for a financing transaction, which is contingent, in the spring, and then that would probably lead to construction within the year.
In a year?
In 23, they would hope, but.
So they don't have, I just want to be clear, they don't have financing right now?
They do not, no.
And did they have financing and the financing fell through?
They have applied for financing and haven't obtained it. I think you certainly know that we've seen construction cost increase of 30+% in the market, and the interest rates have quadrupled since this permit was granted. It's a very difficult environment, which I think you're seeing throughout the city.
Well, I'm not going to personally oppose a grant of an extension of time when you're coming in for the first time to do it. I would be concerned, frankly, about future extensions because it means that the current premises are not vibrant and we have vacant space, which is just not good for the city for a whole host of reasons. But I'll support this request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor before I do that, welcome Councillor Greenberg. Councillor Markowitz.
Thank you, Chair. I'm fine with this. I just wanted to say I'm home with kind of the flu, so that's why I'm not in the chamber. But had I known that Mr. Schlesinger was coming in, I would have come. I would have made an extra effort to do that. So it's good to see you too.
I love to hear that, Councillor Markowitz. I'd like to see everybody on this committee start coming in now if they feel so comfortable. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much. So I strongly support the extension of this project because I strongly support the original project that we permitted. And I very much hope that this extension will enable the developer to either get financing or to arrange purchase by someone who would be willing and able to build it, because this is a good project. So I think far better than something that might come back before us, and certainly probably done quicker than if we had to start the process all over again with a new project. So given that this is my ward, I guess I would move approval of the extension.
Thank you. I second all of your emotions there. We have a motion to approve this extension. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item is, there are two together. It is 39-23, request to rezone 29 Hunter Street to MR3, Christopher Noble, and also 40-23, request to allow a multifamily dwelling, extend non-conforming use, waive parking stalls, and allow dimensional waivers to parking at 29 Hunter Street. Who is here to present?
I am, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Morris, would you like us to go to
I would defer to the land, to the
planning.
planning
I'd
staff to
appreciate
present their report first.
Great, thank you very much. Ms. Kemet.
All right. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. I saw that Director Heath's
Kat.
hand was up.
Yeah, sorry, Kat. Just for the record, Chair Lipoff, the planning board is here and has a quorum to hear this request since it involves a rezoning.
Thank you. That is Barney Heath from Planning. Kelly Brown, would you like to introduce the members of the Planning Board?
Sure, sure, Mr. Chairman. Kevin McCormick, Peter Doringer, Lee Breckenridge, myself, and Barney Heath is also one of our members. I don't think I missed anyone, but.
Thank you very much. I always forget to introduce you guys. It's a infrequent visit, but we're happy to have you. Excuse me, could you sit down, please? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Kemet.
Great. So yes, this is petition 3923 and 4023, a special permit for 29 Hunter Street. The petitioners here are proposing to rezone the parcel to MR3 and convert the existing dwelling into a 3-unit multifamily dwelling. As proposed, the project requires rezoning the parcel. It also requires special permit relief for relief to allow a multifamily dwelling, to further extend a non-conforming side setback, to waive 2 parking stalls, to allow parking in the front and side setback, to reduce stall width and depth. And the project also requires relief that was not originally requested for a retaining wall. In reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site is an appropriate location for the proposed multifamily dwelling, which requires relief to further extend a non-conforming side setback, waive 2 parking stalls, allow parking in the front and side setback, reduce stall width and depth, and to allow a retaining wall of 4 feet or more in height within a setback. If the proposed project will adversely affect the neighborhood, if there will be a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved, and if literal compliance with the parking requirements is impracticable due to the nature of the use or the location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot. So the property is located at 29 Hunter Street in the MR2 district in West Newton. The current land use is single family residential. The properties on the north side of Hunter Street are all zoned MR2, while those on the south are zoned SR2. And north of the Pike, the zoning is a bit of a mix of BU1, MR1, manufacturing, and public use. The surrounding neighborhood is mostly residential, with the Mass Pike cutting through at the top there. And the site consists of 5,185 square feet of land, improved with a single family dwelling that was constructed around 1893. The site slopes from south to north with the low point towards the Pike. Vehicular access is provided via a curb cut along the western property line. And there's a paved driveway that leads towards the back of the site. The existing residence has pre-existing non-conforming dimensional elements to it. The front setback is only 11.9 feet where 25 feet is required. The height is non-conforming as well at 38 feet where 36 feet is the maximum allowed by right. And the frontage on Hunter Street is also non-conforming at 55 feet where 70 feet is required. Oops. Sorry about that. I think I jumped the gun from current slide. So the petitioner is proposing to rezone the parcel from MR2 to MR3. Both MR2 and MR3 do allow multifamily use by special permit, but the two districts have differences in the dimensional controls that control the parcels. So the petitioner is seeking to retain the existing structure, so the single family dwelling will remain largely unchanged with some additions to it, and it will be converted into a 3-unit multifamily dwelling, which requires a special permit in the district. If the parcel is rezoned to MR3, the setbacks, the side setback that is currently conforming would no longer be conforming. The petitioner is also seeking to extend the non-conforming setback on the right by constructing a deck, which would be 3.8 feet from the property line on the right, which requires a special permit. We have requested architectural plans to better understand what those decks would look like. So if the petitioner has those to share, we would definitely like to take a look. But for now, this is the plan we have before us. The existing driveway will be extended to the rear of the lot with a retaining wall, which would start at the western property line at a height of 5 feet and continue around the back of the property. And because it's 5 feet in height within a setback, it requires special permit relief. So because that element of the relief was not included initially in the public notice or in the request from the petitioner, we have let the petitioner know that they need to seek additional relief for that element or revise the plan to have a retaining wall that would be allowed by right. So two parking stalls are required per dwelling unit for a total of 6 required parking stalls on the site. The petitioner is proposing 4, so a waiver would be required for 2 parking stalls. All of the parking stalls proposed are 8 feet wide, where 9 feet is required, which requires relief. And they're proposed at a depth of 18 feet, where 19 feet is required. So that also requires relief. 3 of the stalls will be located at the rear of the residence and accessed via the existing curb cut. And a second curb cut is proposed on the other side of the home. where the petitioner proposes one parking stall, which would be located within the front and side setback. Because no parking may be located in the front setback by right, a special permit is required for that. And there's no relief required for lot coverage. It is proposed at 24%, where 45% is the maximum allowed. But we noted in our memo that this is a pretty significant increase in impervious area. It's going from 2,077 square feet of impervious paving, of impervious area to 3,500 square feet. So we have suggested the petitioner consider some alternatives to reduce that amount of paving. And also want to note that a stormwater plan has not been submitted, but will be required for the project. So thanks for listening to that. That's all
Thank
we
you.
have for now.
So we would need a stormwater plan before we'd be able to vote on this as well, correct? Or is that not necessary?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Katie. I believe you could vote on it without that plan, but I believe the plan would be needed for later steps.
I think, yeah, it would be required before a building permit, but it's certainly something I think the planning and the engineering department would be interested in seeing sooner than later.
Right. Okay, that's just for clarification for everybody listening. Okay, Mr. Morris, we'll hear from you. I think it's clear to say, everybody, that because the wall of greater than 4 feet in a setback was not part of this, and if they continue to ask for that, that would be a reason why we would be not voting and holding this tonight. Go ahead, Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to commend Ms. Kemet for a comprehensive presentation of the petitions before us. If I might just share the screen, providing some background to how we got here in the first place.
Sure, go ahead. And for everybody, we're finally getting some people coming to the chamber. Just want to let everybody know I'm not nodding off. There's a TV screen right down here that I'm looking at, so I don't turn around and look at the big one behind me. Continue, Mr. Morris.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Let's see. Can everyone see the
Yes, we can.
map that's up on the screen?
Yes, we can.
I think, by way of explanation, I want to say how we got to this point. I was contacted by the petitioner many months ago about what to do with this particular property. As has been reported, there's a single-family house that was built in 1893 on a street that has 5 other lots, 4 of which are occupied by buildings. I think it's important to note what I'm showing on the screen right now is an excerpt from the 1929 City Atlas produced by Roland Barnes. It shows the extent of the block bordered by Hunter Street, Highland Ave, Putnam, and the now defunct Margin Street. I think it's particularly relevant to show this because at one time, this property was part of a much larger viable block that was largely decimated when the turnpike went through, albeit 60 years ago, wiped out a lot of properties, including the entire stretch of Margin Street and all of those properties that you see located on that portion of what was then the block. This is particularly relevant because, as has been pointed out, Hunter Street is actually in 2 different zones. It is zoned for multi-residence 2 on the north side, single residence 3 on the south side. And I think that largely that was done in recognition of the fact that in its current configuration, Hunter Street is quite an anomaly. Whereas it used to be properties that traditionally backed up to other backyards. Now it basically sits astride the Massachusetts Turnpike. And for that reason, I believe that the zoning to multi-residence 2 was called for. It is because of that situation that we are asking the council through its committee to take a second look at the current zoning of the property and proposed that multi-residence 3 is more appropriate than multi-residence 2. At the outset, as the committee does require, we did reach out to our butters on either side of us. We had originally seen this or conceived of this petition as something that would require a rezoning of the entire north side of the street. Purely from a land planning point of view, that would seem to make the most sense because all of the lots are in that the district. Rezoning a particular lot would seem not really a comprehensive solution to the situation. We did reach out with our neighbors, as I said, on either side. I met with Mr. Goneman, who owns the property, with his spouse to the right of us, and Mr. Tormey. I spoke with him on several occasions. The Tormeys own 2 lots further east of us. Together, the 3 owners own most of that street. Unfortunately, the other owners it would require, in order to rezone the entire street, would require approval of the other owners or a citizen's petition of 10 signatures. We chose not to go the signature route, preferring rather to engage our neighbors in a comprehensive look at the street. So because we were unable to, or the abutters were not prepared to support or the petition to rezone the entire street, we were left with the path of simply going forward on this petition, rezoning this particular parcel, knowing that ultimately the solution, if there is one, would be a larger rezoning of that, of what's left of that block. This petition really presents itself into 3 different pieces. You have 2 separate docket items, obviously the zone change and a subsequent special permit. Obviously, without a positive view of the rezoning of this petition, the other two aspects of the proposal, which largely consist of a special permit and ultimately site plan review, become moot. So we think it's appropriate to have the committee focus conceptually on whether this property and perhaps others should be rezoned to that zone. If we were able to overcome that hurdle, then we would be looking at a special permit. And the reason why we proposed the rezoning to multi-residence 3 was, as has been pointed out in Ms. Kemet's planning memo, the dimensional controls are more appropriate to further the prospective development, if there is any, in the future. Currently, the MR2 zone, given the size of the parcels and the dimensional controls in place, there is little change that could be accomplished. Admittedly, we looked at this property at 29 Hunter Street in isolation. It's a single-family house. I believe it's one of only 2 on that side of the street. It's almost 3,000 square feet on 3 levels as a traditional 2.5-story Victorian era property. The question which has been posed to this committee in the past, we are sitting there on a much larger single-family house, and whether, first of all, single-family use is appropriate for this zone, and secondly, whether having 3 units on the site, 3 smaller units, approximately 800 to 900 square feet, would be a more appropriate use of the site, given its proximity to West Newton Square, and the public transit options that are available to it. It would seem that any parking relief that we've requested would be appropriate as part of the special permit. And I just would moving beyond the zone change and the special permit to the 3rd element of this petition, which would be largely the equivalence of site plan approval. We recognize that there are some improvements to be made over the plot plan or the site plan that was presented. Most notably, in talking to Mr. Goneman, I know that he expressed some concern about the location of the parking space in proximity to his lot, as well as the extension of the deck that would further extend into the side yard setback. I have discussed with the team the probability, not only simply the possibility, the probability of rectifying some site plan issues to perhaps eliminate that parking space and to reconfigure the deck so that it goes along the back of the property and does not further exacerbate a setback issue. We also might take a more creative look at the redesign of the 3 parking spaces in the back to address the planning department's concern about the proliferation of hardscape. With that, Mr. Chairman, I think that that is our summary of our petition, and we're available to answer any questions. We hope that this background information proves useful to the committee in its deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Morris, have you had a neighborhood meeting? Have you met with the neighbors on the left, the right, up and down the street? It sounded like
we reached. Well, first of all, the only property owner across the street from us was the architect, Mr. Peter Sachs, has been before this committee. He and I had a meaningful discussion at the outset of this petition. I personally met with Mr. Goneman at site at his home. I did, as I said, have a successful outreach to Mr. Tormey on 2 occasions, asking him, and my second conversation with him, he had said that he had spoken with several of his neighbors who had some reservations, to put it kindly, reservations about the rezoning. Admittedly, it's a major undertaking. Anytime you look at rezoning property, it could create some sense of apprehension among the owners. But I can safely say that the rezoning in this particular case, at least from where we sit, could only be a benefit to them. It doesn't change the status quo, but it does offer the prospect of some other form of development if it were rezoned down the road, should the individual owners choose to do so. So the extent of our outreach was really to two of the closest abutters on either side of us.
And you spoke to the abutters on either side?
I did speak to Mr. Goneman and Mr. Tormey on the far side. My client has had some outreach to the abutter to the left of us. That's where we stand.
Okay. I mean, as you know, we hope that you would have outreach to everybody on the street, especially when there's a limited number of homes. It's pretty easy for you to do. It doesn't appear that you've done that. Is that correct?
Well, we did. I believe that I had, given the information that I had available to me to contact people either by phone or by email, I tried to optimize that opportunity.
Okay. Well, we typically do it by flyers and knocking on doors. I just say that because we have gotten some feedback from a few people that report to us that they haven't met with you or the developer at all. So I just want to give you that feedback, and that gives us pause to move forward. Are you still going to be asking for that retaining wall that is not in this ask, which would leave us to have to hold this?
Well, this is something, given the scope of the petition that I've just outlined, is something that we never expected to be handled in 1 meeting or even 2.
Okay,
We're
that's fine.
hopeful of being able to present the petition this evening as a vehicle to have a larger discussion about the rezoning, which is really the platform for this petition.
And I'm going to... Go ahead.
Excuse me. If we could just find out get some feedback on whether there's any traction for that rezoning. If there's no traction for that rezoning, then there's no use.
There's no reason to talk about the special permit. And I agree with you. And just to remind the committee, we've done this many times before. And on bigger petitions, on Riverside, Northland, Trio, when you have a change in zone going to an MU4 because it's a large tract of land in an area that deserves, multi-use with retail on the first floor, we take the zoning and the special permit up together, and we're really thinking about them in concert. But here, you're absolutely right. This is a unique ask, in the middle of a block one property, small property, to be asked for this zone change. And I think I'm right with you that we should focus on whether or not the zone change on this street is appropriate and whether we're going to vote for that or not. And I think that should be the focus. So we're going to go to the public now. And I would like the public to try to focus on that. The special permit has some things missing tonight. I think I know it's hard to only talk about the zoning change without the special permit, but try to focus on that piece instead of what they're bringing forward. Now, the zoning change ultimately would allow them for 3 units, so it's fair game to talk about that. But the particulars of this special permit, you don't have to focus on as much as the zone which would allow an additional unit. Just some guidance. In the end, you can say whatever you'd like. So come on up. Let's start in the chamber. If you want to come up and state your name and address, and we'd like to keep this to 2 minutes for each person. Yeah. Please try. And if you sent us a letter, we have read your letter and you don't need to read it again. You can summarize, okay?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I will try to keep it to 2 minutes. But before you start the clock, I do want to say that the map that was presented by Mr. Morris is not actually a 1929 map, because Margin Street was on the map in 1929, and Margin Street is not what's up there. And in fact, what's up there is identical to what I got from the engineering department today. So we were not looking at Margin Street, but I think the history is worthwhile. And certainly the fact that this north side of Hunter Street was rezoned to multi-residence, we believe is a result of the highway going in. So I think that was very helpful history. Now, I will focus too on the zoning because, as we know, we who signed our opposition paper, I'll call it, felt that we did not have enough information and felt that this board did not have enough information and needs more before it makes its decision. So I don't think we can really object since we say we need more information. I agree with that. But also, I think that it's worth at least getting a sense of the zoning, because we don't really know how to discuss the rest of it until we know whether we're talking with M2 or M3. And the things like lot coverage requirements that were presented by the planning board were presented for an M3. And I think they're more restrictive in an M2, and perhaps that's why this lot wants M3. As he said, the rest of the street does not. And even if we did stick with M2, anybody on the street can petition to be found in M3. And in fact, as I said in my paper, most of the lots on this street are entirely appropriate. Most of them have the ability to put in 6 parking places. Most of them have 10 or 11,000 square feet, so that even if we went under different rules, there would still be ample to allow 3 units. So I think the real difference between us is, number one, that focusing on one spot is spot zoning. And spot zoning is defined as zoning for use on a small section of land to be used in a different way from surrounding properties, to the benefit of that particular landowner and the detriment of nearby landowners. So I would contend that we really can't discuss it at all, because it is one single property that in fact is inappropriate for 3-family, and properties that are not problematic are not included in the discussion, because, as he said, we really don't want that. We want the ability to address things individually, which is what would happen in the case of keeping it as an MR2. I am not going to address every point in my petition, but I do think that it's worth looking at the issue of parking and traffic, because if this locus is granted the M3 status with only 4 parking places, that will automatically mean that those parking places are going to end up on the street. And as the planning board said, we really need to look at location in this situation. And this property is at a very busy end of the street where parking and traffic are problematic, and on-street parking would affect our ability to see what's coming around a busy corner. It's the most narrow street in the neighborhood. It does not even have enough room for parking on both sides because emergency vehicles can't get down. It's so narrow that even when there is no parking on the street, as there is during a snow emergency, during the last big snowstorm, we had to wait while Boston Gas brought in a front-end loader and a dump truck to get the snow off the street before they could fix a gas leak. So there just is not enough room for vehicles now. That's a problem. Secondly, location, and in that respect, Mr. Morris's map was very, very helpful because it shows you that we are right adjacent to the Mass Pike, and in fact, to exit and entrance ramps from the Mass Pike, and adjacent to Washington Street Route 16, both of which are busy highways, and we find that cars come too quickly around that corner at that end of the street. There's a problem getting into our street from the other end too, but it's not as busy and it has better visibility. This is a problem, and one of the people who could not be here tonight but would come to another hearing has in fact witnessed accidents at that intersection. And I myself have witnessed the death of a cat because someone came around the corner too fast. And when we used to allow our cats outside, we would regularly lose cats. Now, I know I'm coming to the end of my time. I do want to make a couple more points on this, and they won't be long ones.
Okay, you're double past your time.
You're very kind and very
I'm a very
generous.
kind person, but I'd like you to wrap up. If we could.
Okay, I will wrap up. To summarize everything in the paper and everything I would have said, this is probably the second worst candidate for M3 in the district, ours being the smallest lot, and almost all the other lots would be better candidates if that's the way zoning is going in Newton. And I would respectfully request that this petition for an M3 be denied, and denied, if not tonight, then fairly quickly, because we do want to meet and discuss with the applicants. It's in our interest to get this house fixed up and looking nice. And if they don't intend to fix it up and want to tear it down, we need to know. Everybody needs to know what they're dealing with. So I'd urge you to, if not tonight, then soon resolve the M3 issue so that we can have meaningful discussion about the rest.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, just a quick note for the committee and the public about spot zoning. It's something that for most people is very gray. It seems pretty straightforward that something like this could be. But I'd like to read something from our law department which really clarified it for me. It's well within the City Council's discretion to rezone specific parcels for specific projects. Illegal spot zoning does not occur unless it is shown that a parcel was rezoned solely for the economic benefit of the owner of the land without any legitimate legislative goal. In other words, it's completely acceptable for a rezoning to further a particular project that benefits a developer if the amendment also serves the public welfare. As with all rezoning petitions, both the City Council and the Planning Board are currently holding public hearings on this petition and are in the process of evaluating whether the proposed rezoning advances a valid public purpose. So that's what we do. So if it is only for the benefit of the developer, if we can't find that there is a public good here, then it would be inappropriate of us to make that change. But when we can make that change with a single parcel like this, and it's not considered spot zoning, I hope that clarifies it a little bit more for you guys. It did for me.
Well, I'd like to comment on that if I may.
I'd rather not and move on? We have a bunch.
May I submit it in my comments in writing?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, welcome Counselor Maliki, not on the committee, but happy to have you here. And Counselor Oliver, Counselor John Oliver has joined us as well. Anybody else here that would like to come and speak on this zone change? Come on up, state your name and address.
My name's Nick Nesta. I live at 51 Highland Street, which is on the corner of Highland and Hunter Street. Just to your question as to outreach from the developer, Mr. Morris, we received a poorly written letter that confused the north and south side of our streets originally when they wanted to rezone the entire street to multifamily. I spoke to a couple of neighbors, some of whom are in the room, and a few folks that are on Zoom right now. After that letter, they said, call us if you have any questions. Well, there was lots of questions, and at that point, when we realized that they were completely confused north from south, it really didn't go anywhere. After that, the next time we're hearing about this is when this hearing was scheduled. From your definition of spot zoning and whether it's a public use or not, we're working with incomplete information right now in terms of their plans, the ask of a retaining wall, no drainage studies. They're abutting, state land on their north side and their back lot, and the pike is right there. Whether or not this causes runoff problems with the neighbors, and whether or not putting a 5-foot retaining wall, suddenly has parked cars in smaller spots than is normal, kind of looming over the backyards of the neighbors. Doesn't seem to me like it's going to be, a public benefit. And to what Kathy said about the parking on our street, it's very tight. The weekends, everybody grins and bears it because folks want to go to church, they want to go to the synagogue, they want to go shopping in West Newton. And with the recent changes in traffic patterns in West Newton Square, which has definitely slowed things down in a good way and added the bike lanes, it's also used now Hunter Street as a cut-through, a high-speed cut-through at certain points for folks wanting to get around the new traffic pattern in West Newton. So it's tough as it is. Adding the potential of 4 to 6 more cars is going to make it tougher. And that's what I have.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Trevor, could you give us your full name on Zoom and your address?
Hi, I'm Trevor Stricker. I live at 28 Putnam Street on the corner of Putnam and Hunter. And I am directly across from the house in question.
Okay, go ahead.
So first of all, I want to point out just a factual inaccuracy, which is we're actually across Hunter Street from the house, not Peter Sachs, who is my neighbor. I want to echo Kathy and Nick's concern when it comes to traffic and parking. They're much more mature and level-headed than I am, but sometimes it's kind of scary having a child on this street because, this isn't just because cars speed down it, and when there's too many cars parked on the side, it's a very difficult street to navigate. And to propose building something without sufficient parking just to me seems like, nobody in the neighborhood would want this. I also want to, address the definition of spot zoning that you gave. When it comes to a developer wanting to build as many units on the piece of land that they bought, I totally get the economic incentive to do that. But as to any benefit that, the community or the neighborhood would see, that's the part that I'm very much in the dark about. And as the person directly across the street, I think I would, I would be aware if there was a benefit. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And you just gave us the definition of what worries us about spot zoning. If there is no benefit, it can be considered spot zoning. I hate even using the term just because people use it without the foundation of what you just mentioned. If it's not, there's no public good, and we're just doing it to the benefit of the person who's there, that's the kind of thing that we have to avoid. Kathy, can I ask you one more question? You made a statement that there are other lots on this street that you and the neighbors would be more inclined to allow 3. Was that because of the size of the lot? If the lot's larger on your street, 3 would be okay?
I think we'd have to have a discussion specifically about 3 for the street. But in terms of the ability to support 3 units, I think that the old metric was 3,500 square feet per unit, and the house that Mr. Nesta lives in, I think, is close to 10 or 11,000 square feet. The house on the M2 side of the street, at the beginning of the street, 5 to 7, is 11,000. Mr. Tormey's rental property consists of 2 lots of 5,000 plus that add up to over 11,000. So on our side of the street, there are 2 lots out of the 5 that already have not only the right dimensions, but the ability to park 6 cars.
Okay. Thank you. That's good. I just wanted to clarify that thought process. Okay, anybody else in the chamber wish to speak? Come on up. State your name and address.
My name's Wayne Gonerman. I live at 2500 Street, which is adjacent to the property in question. When Stacy Anastas first bought this property, we had a conversation, and she said they're going to fix it up as a 2-family, and one of them will be for herself and one for a relative. Perfect. Thumbs up, no problem. It's an ideal situation. And they took out 7 dumpster loads, large dumpster loads of materials from that house. So basically, at the moment, it's sitting there boarded up as a totally gutted structure. Now, the question is, according to this proposed rezoning and the MR3, there is no information available as to what's going to happen to that structure. Is it going to stay there? Is it going to be demolished and something conforming to 3 units or 2 units being built? We have no idea. And so the information has not been forthcoming as to what is going to happen to that property. And for that reason alone, I think the MR3 zoning request should be disallowed.
Thank you. And that brings up a question for Mr. Morris. Even though we're focusing on the zone change, what are the intentions of the developer in this case? Would it be to maintain the property and renovate it on its foundation, or would they be tearing down and building new?
The intention, Mr. Chairman, was always to convert the existing home into 3 apartments, 1 apartment on each of the 3 levels of the house. Mr. Garman knows that because that's exactly what I told him when I met with him. When I have the opportunity to comment on other people speak, I'd like to go into to address some of the things that have been said, but I'll wait until everyone's had their piece if I can.
I will give you that opportunity once
Thank you.
everybody's done. Are we done here in the chamber with anybody wishing to speak? Okay, is there anybody else on Zoom from the public that wishes to speak? I don't see anybody. Mr. Morris, you can have some time to respond.
If I could again share the screen, I would appreciate that.
Sure, go ahead.
Let's see. There is proposed. I did. I'm glad that Mr. Wong spoke and confirmed that I did do outreach to the neighbors. Can everyone see this letter on my screen?
Yes.
This is the letter that Mr. Wong said was such poorly written. I sent this exact same letter.
We can't
individually.
see any letter at home, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, I see your screen. You're asking about a letter.
okay,
We're
I'm
still
sorry.
seeing your 1920-something.
All right, then
Okay.
I will come back and I will do it again. I brought up the document, sorry. As you know, I'm not particularly adept at doing all of this. There. I trust Councilor Laredo, you can see that letter now?
We can see the letter.
I can't,
Thank you.
Attorney Morris.
This is the letter that Mr. Wong so critically said was poorly written. I would venture you could read it yourself. It's quite clear about what is proposed. And as I said, one of these was addressed and sent to each of the owners on the south side, on the north side, excuse me, inviting them to a conversation. Sadly, I only received 2 responses, and those 2 people are the ones that I engaged with, and then asked them to, since I was not getting a response from other people, to reach out to those other people to see if we could engage in a dialogue. That dialogue was not made possible because I had no response. I would take issue with the first speaker who said that my presentation was not of the atlas was not correct. I happen to have a personal copy of the 1929 atlas in my office, and that's where that excerpt was taken from.
All right, we don't have to spend time on plans
fine. I wanna
from
get back
almost
to the-
100 years ago. Let's go.
Yeah, I want to get back to the comment. It's never been our intention to proceed individually on this lot. As I said, this petition, because I felt that there was a larger issue with rezoning the entire street, we chose this for specifically to get to this point, to engage in a discussion. If we are to proceed, it would only be if the planning board, and I'm glad that the planning board is now part of the process, would take a critical look at what this about this of the street, and perhaps make a recommendation as to whether not only should this lot be rezoned, but the balance of that street. With respect to the size of the lots on that street, Mr. Goneman's lot is a 5,800 square feet, 5,800 square foot lot. The Tormeys do own 2 lots, one of which is vacant and classified as unbuildable, but they're both 5,000 square foot lots. The 2 lots at the far end of the street are the largest, one being 8,000 and the other being 11,000. But all of the lots in the middle actually would qualify and benefit for this rezoning were it to happen. That's really it, Mr. Chairman. As I said, this was an intentional way to get us to this point where hopefully we could have a rational discussion about the future of this street. And we did it in the context of a special permit precisely so people would see the particular, as a case in point, a case study as to what could be done on this property and arguably on each of the other 4 lots that would comply, that would be eligible for further development in the future if their owners so choose. If not, then the status quo would remain. But as for this parcel, we believe it will be a more appropriate use as 3 smaller units than 1 single family, which single family use in this property seems to have long since
Or
passed its
potentially
by.
2, or potentially 2 units, which would be by right.
Can't do it. We don't have the lot area for 3 units.
For 2 units.
For 2 units, you raised the lot area requirement to 3,500 square feet some years ago.
Not
We
by
only have a
right, but
5,000
your
square
ask
foot
could
lot.
be for 2 as well. And Mr. Morris, I have to remind you, we are not zoning and planning. We are not, the rezoning of this entire street is not in front of us. It's not in front of the planning board either. I understand how you'd like to look at this, But it is not appropriate. The planning board is not considering the rezoning of this street. We're talking about one property tonight, okay? And I know you know that, but there's no need to talk about what you set out to do initially with that letter to talk about rezoning the entire street. That doesn't happen in front of the Land Use Committee, and it doesn't happen in front of the planning board. Tonight, we're looking at this one property. Fair statement? Truthful statement?
I respectfully disagree with that, with some elements of that. As I said, it seemed
You were chair of land use at one time, Mr. Morris. Did you
Yes,
ever
I know.
rezone an entire street?
When I was chairman of land use committee, entertained both zone changes and special permit petitions in one committee. Zoning and planning was at the time called the
Okay,
city
you got me
planning
there way before my time. But you know what I'm talking about. You know what we're doing tonight. So let's just leave it at that. Before we go to the committee, 30 seconds.
Okay, Catherine Clement again. Just to correct two statements. First of all, Mr. Goneman is my husband. And so when we talk about Mr. Goneman said this and Mr. Goneman said that, Mr. Goneman is saying, no, we didn't talk about that. And I do remember him talking with one person, not, I think, Mr. Morris, and coming back to me about the discussion. So that's his representation, that the things that he was attributed to are not his statements. The other is our lot is not 5,800 square feet. I go by the tax bill and the tax assessor's map, and they put it at a little over 4,700 square feet.
That's right, 47, that's correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
That's correct.
Thank you so much. Okay, we will take it into the committee. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the clarity of direction that you've given us, and I'm going to really limit myself to the rezoning discussion tonight. I'd like to pick up on a couple of things that some of the neighbors have said. One is Ms. Clement just kind of referred to the distrust that has gone on throughout this process, so I understand why they're feeling uncertain about what's really being proposed and what the benefit might be to them. Between who the owners are and what the intention was, this has been going on for years, and I appreciate the sense of unease that the neighbors are exhibiting around both the rezoning and the special permit. To some points that Mr. Stricker made, it's really what I wanted to talk about too. I don't see that there is a valid public purpose with the rezoning. The only public purpose I could see is that there would be one additional unit of housing. But I think the counterbalance to that public purpose is that the rezoning would really only benefit the economic benefit of the owner. We've heard about traffic concerns, congestion, parking, children's safety, not to mention what we would get into if we were to talk about the special permit, how much impervious surface and lack of open space there is. But I do not see that the rezoning advances a valid public purpose here. I think the outreach was more than incomplete. I've spoken to most of these neighbors personally, met in their offices, met in their homes, talked out in the parking lot. Most of them were not reached out to, and I think that going forward, it's definitely time to have that kind of conversation and work with the neighbors. You know, Mr. Morris has heard this from us constantly. Reach out and embrace the neighbors and get their input early on. A two-family by right could be done without having to come to us. I personally am not opposed to a three-family here, but I am opposed to, I think, the rezoning of it. And with that, I'll just stop and let other people have a chance. Thanks for now, but I'll probably be back on before we conclude.
Sure. Thank you. Councillor Laredo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I agree with my colleague from Ward 3, and I'm going to be probably a little bit more blunt. This is not ready for prime time and never should have been before us, period. If Attorney Morris was looking to get support for rezoning the street, well, he didn't have it. That was quite clear from his conversations with the neighbors. And it's not this body's job and certainly not the land use committee's job to rezone an entire street because one particular developer on one particular lot wants to rezone it for his economic benefit. And I have to say, if the criteria that we're adding a single unit of housing beyond what would be allowed by right is enough to overcome the concept of spot zoning, then we might as well not have zoning at all, because that justification can be made for any single property where a developer wants to come in and build more than is allowed by right. But that's not what zoning is supposed to do. Not what zoning is supposed to do. This project should never have been before us, should never have been here this evening. And I'll have to add, the idea that you come in with a project, but you haven't noticed the retaining wall, you haven't provided some of the other documentation, that's, we should never, ever hear a project in this committee unless it's a major project where we know it's going to take many meetings to get through, until the application is complete and properly noticed. This, in my mind, is spot zoning at its worst. And I'm prepared to vote against this right now. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, we look at each one on its own, and there's different, there are different aspects to weigh. How many asks are there for waivers? If there are a few, if there are a lot, we look at it differently. You know, is it a single family and you could go to 2, and is that reasonable because the rest of the street are 2s? Is 3 too many? I mean, you know, I agree with some of what Councilor Laredo was saying, but we look at each one, and if this one doesn't fit in, it doesn't fit in. There's many criteria we look at to figure out whether there is a benefit. And what Councilor Laredo says is, hey, there are some people that would say, we want more units, we need more units, we want smaller units, and this one does bring smaller units. But then you have to look at all the other aspects of it. How much forgiveness, how much relief? Do they have the ability to increase the number of units without asking for another? These are all the things that I'm weighing, and I do not see myself voting for this one as well. But after weighing all of that and not just laying down the law, Councilor Bowman.
All right.
Excuse me, sir. We're in the committee now. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I guess one item I would add is a potential public benefit, but I'm not sure that it rises to justifying the rezoning of this property. Is it would be really great to see this house renovated. You know, we talk a lot about maintaining our historic homes, and I happen to notice in driving down the street that all but one of the homes on this street is original, is historic. And so I would hope that we could come to a project where the developer is interested in doing that. So I don't know if 2 units there is going to pencil out for the renovation that would be required to restore this home to its former beauty. It may very well be, but it certainly is things that the fact that it backs up to the pike is going to make it a little less valuable to some people, a variety of things. But, you know, I would hope that whatever project is there involves keeping the home. So that would be one thing to consider. And I know it's something we considered at 145 Warren to allow additional homes on that property because it made the project work to renovate the home up front. So just something to think about. But I also am not ready to vote on this project, on the rezoning.
Thank you, Councilor Markowitz.
Thank you, Chair. By adding to this conversation, I think we're already giving this more time than it deserves. I'm going to align myself 100% with what Councilor Kelly and Laredo said. I don't know why we're talking about rezoning the amount of time we spent talking about that. It's a great initiative if you want to do it. It doesn't belong here. As far as the shape of the petition coming in front of us, not being ready for prime time is being kind. I hope we don't see this again. I really don't. And again, of course, I'm not ready to vote for this either. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion? Counselor Kelly.
I wasn't sure if there were any other counselors who are not on the committee. Like, I'm not sure if my other Ward 3 counselors wanted to speak to this or not.
They may be agreeing with you right now.
I believe that I know where they stand, but I would
Yes.
like for them to be able to say it themselves publicly.
That's okay.
And if they're not interested in speaking up tonight, I would be happy to make a motion to deny the application for a
Okay.
rezone.
Okay, I'll take that in a second. Mr. Brown, Kelly Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I had a couple of questions, and I would expect that the planning board would want to talk about it before we moved on it, but you obviously can make your own, land use can make its own decision about this. The one question I had was, I'm just trying to understand what it is besides the third unit. Is there some other thing that prevents this project going forward? Because it seems like the dimensional requirements for MR2 are a little bit different, but not that different from MR3, and you'd be looking for a substantial number of special permits for waiving. But the one that you wouldn't be able to get is the additional unit. Is maybe I can just ask Ms. Kemet that question. Is that accurate?
My understanding is that multifamily is allowed by special permit in both of those districts. So that element of it is the same regardless of the zone.
But the number of units, the number of units can't do a third in an MR2, right?
The lot area per unit is, lot area per unit does not exist, is not enough.
Right, my mistake.
Theoretically, you could buy special permit, but not for this parcel, it sounds like.
Okay, that's exactly what I was trying to understand. Thank you.
Because of the size of the lot? Correct. Okay. All right, Counselor Wright.
Thank you. I was having problems raising my hand. I agree with the other counselors and Counselor Kelly and Laredo and the rest. My question is, staying in MR2, they could do a 2-family and then also have an ADU. And couldn't they do that?
Technically, they could, but that's not that's not really what they want. Somebody would have to live there.
Well, we were talking about, I thought, a family member and then maybe another family member in the other unit. So, I mean, that's one way to get around this and staying in the MR2 zone.
That is a way to get a third, but that is not what I would assume a developer who wants to develop the property and move on. A little tricky to find somebody to live there to create that unit. That's really not the model that's efficient or profitable for a developer to do.
Okay. But I do support not rezoning this. Thank you.
You support rezoning it, or you're against
No,
it?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. We all heard otherwise. Thank you. Okay, and we have Counselor Maliki from, I'm guessing, a high school up north. Am I correct?
Racket High basketball, yeah.
All right.
Get back in because the score turned around. I'll be brief. I couldn't say it better than Councilor Laredo. This just to me seems the poster child for spot zoning, and if this were permitted here, where would it not be asked for? And you might as well throw out the zoning code. So I would, if this ever gets to full council, I would be a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, you can put your hands down after you speak. Looks like we're done. We have a motion. We need a motion to close the public hearing by Counselor Kelly. So moved. All in favor say aye. Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Public hearing is closed.
Chair Lipoff, can I make one note before you do the next motion?
Yes, go ahead.
This would not be able to be taken up by full council at the next meeting if the committee recommends denial. That's because no action can be taken by the full city council until they receive the planning board's report and recommendation, or 21 days have passed since the close of the public hearing.
So noted. We still can make this motion. It just won't come up.
Yep.
Correct. The full council would just need to hold its vote until essentially 21 days from today.
And we'll do that at that meeting, at the full council. Yes, okay.
Correct.
All right, we have a motion to deny. Please call the roll, Mr. Warren.
Hold on, Mr. Chair. Quick question. Is this a deny of the zone change or the special permit?
We're just talking about the zone change.
Thanks.
So a yes vote, an aye vote is to deny the zone change, correct?
Yes, an aye is to deny.
We ready?
Yes, go ahead.
Counselor Bowman.
Aye.
Counselor Downs.
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg.
Aye.
Counselor Kelly.
Aye.
Counselor Laredo.
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff.
Aye.
Counselor Lucas.
Aye.
Counselor Markowitz.
Aye.
The motion to deny is approved.
Thank you. So, Mr. Morris, you have your answer? Okay.
Yeah, quite clearly. Maybe we should have a few more counselors going just to make sure I get the message.
So, go back
I would
and...
suggest that there's no action necessary now on the special permit.
Yes.
Docket.
I would think so, and that's what we should do right now. So we have 40, that was for 39-23, and now the special permit of 40-23. We had the public hearing is closed on both of those. So we have a motion for no action necessary from Councilor Kelly. All right, and the clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Bowman.
Aye.
Counselor Downs.
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg.
Aye.
Counselor Kelly.
Aye.
Counselor Laredo.
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff.
Aye.
Counselor Lucas.
Aye.
Counselor Markowitz.
Aye.
Motion for no action necessary carries.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Morris. We'll see you. Or actually, are you sticking around? You got another one?
I'll be back at the end of the hearing as long
Okay.
as it's not open at 11 o'clock.
We'll see you then. We're doing our best. I don't intend to go past 10 o'clock again. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I don't intend.
Well, thank you
Okay.
for your time. I'm sorry that you all felt it was a waste of time. It's the only path I saw forward on behalf of the clients who requested we go forward.
Thank you,
But
Mr.
Thank
Morris.
you for your time.
Come back with a better one, and let's get that property renovated, okay?
Okay,
Does the
thank you.
planning board have to do anything?
Planning board?
Yeah, we do. We should, I actually see a hand up from Lee. Is it for, just to ask the question about our action tonight?
Yeah, yes.
So I think we should, entertain a motion to close the public hearing, which we didn't do. Do I have one?
So moved.
All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, thank you. I think that's all we need, the only action we need to take tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Planning Board. Thank you very much. All right, the next item of the night is 41-23, Daro Aquino, request to allow a 3-story single-family dwelling at 616 Boylston Street. Who is here to present? Natalia?
Yes, correct.
And you are here to present?
Yes.
Okay, can you speak up so we can hear you?
Can you hear me? Can you hear
Yes,
me
just
well?
a little louder.
Okay. Yeah, can I share my screen?
Yes, go ahead.
Second. everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
So, hello, my name is Natalia Quirino. I'm the project designer at 616 Boylston Street. The project consists of improving an existing single-family house constructed in 1950. We propose a complete interior renovation, removing most of the interior walls, partitions, and creating an open concept. We also propose to build a second-story addition, as well as an expansion of the existing garage. The addition results in a 3-story structure because of the grade slopes downwards at the rear, exposing the basement. So for the average grade calculations, the basement is the first story, rendering the building to 2 stories. We are seeking a special permit because now the proposed second-story addition results in a 3-story addition, which is not allowed in the zoning district. I think that's all. We'll be open for any questions.
Great. We're going to go to planning for the rest. This is Ms. Kemet as well. Go ahead.
If you could stop sharing your screen, Ms. Corina. Thank you. All right, so this is petition 4123 for 616 Boylston Street. The petitioners here are seeking to construct a second-story addition and to expand the existing garage. Due to the average grade of the building on the lot and the downward slope of the property, the basement counts as the first story of the residence, so the building is 2 stories tall. Because the petitioner proposes to construct a 1-story addition above the existing dwelling, the resulting residence will have 3 stories, which requires a special permit, and that's the only relief required for the proposed project. In reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site is an appropriate location for the addition, which creates a 3-story structure. If the proposed addition, which creates a 3-story structure, will adversely affect the neighborhood, if there will be a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, and if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. So this is the subject property, which is located on Boylston Street in the SR3 zone near Newton Center. To the south, the site abuts the Oakdale Woods Conservation Area and single-family homes to the east and west. The majority of the neighborhood is within the SR3 zone, with some MR1 north of Boylston Street and public use in the abutting conservation area. And this part of Boylston Street consists mainly of single-family and small multifamily residences. The site consists of an 8,674 square foot lot, which is improved with a single family residence constructed around 1950. The dwelling presents as single story from the street, but the grade slopes downward at the rear, which exposes the basement. Due to the ordinance's definition of a story, the basement level is considered the first story. Vehicular access is provided via a curb cut on Boylston Street, which leads to an attached garage. And there are some trees and vegetation along the rear property line and southwest portion of the site. The petitioners propose to construct a 2nd-story addition within the entire main footprint of the home and to expand the footprint with a 47 square foot 2-story addition, which would expand the existing attached garage. The new square footage will largely fall within the existing footprint of the dwelling, except for the proposed entry vestibule. And that vestibule will be located at the front entrance of the residence, and it does not require any relief, even though it is in the setback, because the ordinance allows it by right because it is up to 4 feet in depth and 6 feet wide, which is allowed within the setback. And the rear and side setbacks proposed are conforming and require no relief. This is the front elevation. As proposed, the 2nd story, which again presents from the street as the 1st story, will increase from 1,160 square feet to 1,226. The proposed 3rd story will add 1,274 square feet for a total of 3,436 square feet as compared to the existing 2,100 square feet. So in total, the residence will increase from an FAR of 0.24 to 0.39, where up to 0.44 is allowed. Vehicle access will remain the same with that single curb cut on Boylston Street, leading to a paved driveway and connecting to the attached garage, which will be a bit larger. This is the right elevation. We can see here how the downward slope in grade affects the back half of the home and exposes the garage. The current height of the house at the roof is 13 feet above grade, which is increasing to 23 feet above grade with the addition. So no relief is required on that front. Oops. This is the left elevation, presents pretty similar to the right elevation. And this is the rear. We can see here how the addition would reconfigure some of the elements at the rear of the house, including the windows, the porch, and the back entrance. The neighborhood consists of a lot of similarly sized structures with similar presentations from the street. So due to the topography of the lot, the basement level is the first story. This is a feature that we've seen in other buildings in the neighborhood. So given that and the fact that other relief isn't required, the department is not concerned with the proposed relief for that third floor. And that's all I have on that.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody here from the neighborhood, from the public that wishes to speak on this petition? Raise your hand if you're on Zoom. Anybody here? No, I don't see anybody. I'll take it into the council. This one to me is pretty straightforward. You got the exposed basement that's adding to the FAR. It's a nice size lot. This seems pretty straightforward to me. Councilor Bowman?
Yes, given this is my ward, I hope that we could move this quickly. It's a good project. It's a nice renovation, nicely done, nice vestibule in the front, which is good for the environment, reduces, all of that loss of heat. And yeah, so when the time's ready, I'm happy to close the public hearing and move approval.
Great. Ms. Carino, just a question. Is there a lot of area on the present driveway, or do you have a plan to bring equipment up? Because this is on the off-ramp onto Route 9. Just curious as to your plan for construction.
Yes, there is a lot of space in the front, in the driveway, and we were also thinking about probably using a lot of the space we have in the rear, which we have a lot of space in the rear of the house.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Downs.
Hi, thank you. I generally agree with your comments, Chair. I think this is pretty straightforward. The only thing that raised my eyebrows was the depiction of the site as improved shows that all the trees in the back along the conservation land are gone. Is that an intention to clear the lot, or is it just an oversight?
Yeah, no, there is no intention to clear the lot. It's actually, that wasn't the plot plan from the surveyor. It's just like a site to use it plan done by the designer. So no plans.
I would support this.
Great. Okay. I don't see anybody else. Councilor Bowman, would you like to make a motion?
Oh, I made a motion.
Oh, you already did close the public hearing?
I made a motion to close the public hearing and to move approval.
Great. Okay, so we have a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve by Councilor Bowman. Can we take a look at a council order, please?
Yes. So I have for findings 1, the specific site is an appropriate location for the proposed additions, resulting in a 3-story structure due to the topography of the site exposing the basement, and most of the additional floor area is within the footprint of the structure. 2, the proposed additions resulting in a 3-story structure will not adversely affect the neighborhood because there are dwellings of similar size and scale. 3, the proposed additions resulting in a 3-story structure will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because the driveway location is being maintained. And 4, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. And standard conditions would apply.
Great, thank you. We have a motion to, Councilor Bowman?
I think you brought up a good point, Chair. Just a reminder to the petitioner, and maybe we want to include it in the order, that the construction vehicles need to not either park on Route 9 or across the sidewalk, because that is a place where we do have people walking up, and I don't want to put them at risk. So
We can add that in. There's no way they could park on that off-ramp. It would block all access, so.
they could pull up on the sidewalk area.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want them to do that.
Okay.
So just a commitment to having construction vehicles pull onto the site.
Yeah, I don't know if it needs to, Ms. Kemet, you think that's a reasonable thing to put in a condition, not to park on the sidewalk? We have laws against that, and if somebody did,
well,
we would be able to call them out on that. I don't know if it's necessary. Mr. Temple?
Yeah, if it's just about vehicles parking on the sidewalk, I don't think we need a condition. If you truly wanted all the vehicles to be on the site, then you could add that as a condition.
We can add that condition. Okay, let's add a condition, Ms. Kemet or Mr. Temple, whoever, that all construction vehicles need to be on site. They couldn't put it on the off-ramp. They couldn't go around the corner, I don't think, and put it on Parker, but let's put that in, okay? All right, great, thank you. We have the council order in front of us. Can you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Councilor Bowman.
Aye.
Councilor Downs.
Aye.
Councilor Greenberg.
Aye.
Councilor Kelly.
Aye.
Councilor Laredo.
Aye.
Councilor Lipoff.
Aye.
Councilor Lucas.
Aye.
Councilor Markowitz.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Okay, good luck with your project. All right, the next item, 37-23, 336 Cabot Street LLC, request to amend special permit 360-22 to exceed FAR at 336 Cabot Street. Let's go to planning.
All right. Okay. So what we have here, as we just heard, is a petition to amend special permit 360-2222, which was granted last fall, in order to allow the project to exceed the allowed FAR. So this, the criteria that the council should consider is whether, as designed, this non-conforming two-family dwelling in an SR2 district with an FAR of 0.42 or 0.38 is the maximum allowed by right, would be consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood. Now, we will point out at this time that the project is not different in any way than what was presented in the fall. It's just simply at that point the FAR was presented incorrectly as 0.38, where the actual FAR is in fact 0.42. So this criteria is what the council has in front of it now. At the bottom of this, you see what the criteria was at the time of the original special permit, and it was a standard extension of the non-conforming use criteria. So just very briefly, to just remind the public what this project is, we see the site 336 in the middle. These are the elevations of the extensions that were proposed in the fall. And as I said, there is no difference to what's being proposed at this time. It's simply to correct the incorrect statement of FAR at that time. So that's all we have at this time, and hopefully can answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you. This was a calculation done incorrectly on the FAR calculation sheet. The petitioner caught this before they began their construction. It would have been caught by the city, and they caught it, and we are just fixing this now. Is that a reasonable thing to say, Mr. Gleba?
That is correct.
Yes. Okay. Anybody from the public? Oh, is there anybody here from the petitioner that needs to speak, or is that good enough? Okay, so anybody from the public? Can you stop sharing your screen, Mr. Gleba? Thank you. Councilor Lucas?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Ward 2, so I will close this great public hearing and move for approval.
Thank you. We have a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve. Mr. Gleba, do we don't need to look at at a council order, do we? I guess we do.
I think there's just one new finding from the
Okay.
last petition, if you wanted to look at that briefly.
Sure. Let's all just read that quickly.
That's a finding.
Yep.
So this would be added to the previous one.
Great. Thank you. Okay, please call the roll, Mr. Warren.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Councilor Bowman.
Aye.
Councilor Downs.
Aye.
Councilor Greenberg.
Aye.
Councilor Kelly.
Aye.
Councilor Laredo.
Aye.
Councilor Lipoff.
Aye.
Councilor Lucas.
Aye.
Councilor Markowitz.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Okay, thank you. The next item is 38-23, Lake Pride Homes, request to construct a 5-unit dwelling and parking waiver at 194 Adams Street. Let's go to planning first. Mr. Gleba?
Okay. And share my screen. So what we have here, okay, is a request for various kinds of zoning relief. Just go back. This is to replace the non-conforming 3-unit multifamily dwelling with a 5-unit residential dwelling with associated ground level garage parking. They're also seeking associated dimensional parking and use waivers. They can be seen here. Here, this is to allow ground floor residential use. A 3-story structure with 34.86 feet in height, extend the non-conforming side setback, allow an FAR of 1.41. To alter and extend the non-conforming side setback, to waive 3 parking stalls, to reduce the width of the parking stalls, some of them, and to reduce the aisle width for 2-way traffic. The criteria to consider is as seen here, whether this site in the BU2 district is an appropriate location for the proposed 3-story, 34.86 foot high, 5-unit dwelling as designed with ground floor residential use and an FAR of 1.41. Similarly, whether that project would adversely affect the neighborhood, whether it would create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, whether access to the site is appropriate. Additional criteria, whether the proposed altered and extended side setback non-conforming would be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming side setback is to the neighborhood, and whether literal compliance with the parking requirements established by section 5.1 regarding the number of parking stalls needed, parking stall width, and the width of the moving aisle is impracticable due to the nature of the use or location, size with depth, shape, or grade of the lot, or whether such exceptions would be in the public interest, in the interest of safety, or the protection of environmental features. Here's an aerial map of the site outlined in blue. The yellowish color is also the residential uses in the neighborhood. So it's quite overwhelmingly residential, along with some commercial and club uses in the neighborhood as well. Here we have the existing site plan. So Adams Street is to the right-hand side We see the rectangular lot here, the existing building. There's paved parking in the rear. And we see the existing building outlined in crosshatch. Does have a 0-foot front setback and some setbacks to the back and sides. As proposed, that building would be taken down and replaced with this. What we're seeing here, this is the site plan. So it shows the ground floor of the property. Parking would be on the ground floor. Most of below the building, there'd be access to the building above in different areas. So the darker shaded areas would be paved parking. The cross hatching would be where there would be space, FAR on the first floor. So to make sure that parking area is open to the rear, side, and front. That becomes a little more clear with the elevations. The upper left hand is the front elevation. The one below it clearly the rear, and the two sides on the right-hand side. Planning does note that the front elevation does show the cars that would be parked along the rear of the property line. At this point, we do not see so I guess what we're saying, the cars wouldn't be right off the sidewalk here, right at the back of the lot. But as proposed at this moment, there's no kind of garage door proposed for that space. Landscaping as proposed, shown here, again, the orientation. Adams Street is to the right. There would be a row of trees and fence along the left-hand side of the property, and some other shrubs near an entrance in the back and in the front as well. Planning did note in its memo that there does need to be some clarity as to the number of spaces proposed in the parking area, because we interpret some plans to show 7 and some to show 6. So some clarity is needed there. Here's a perspective provided by the petitioner, basically looking from the north or so down to the left-hand side of the proposed building, the existing building to the left, obviously on a different parcel as the one to the right. Here you can see the entrance, hopefully, to the garage at street level off the sidewalk. And we can see how the parking area is open, but there is some screening provided there. Some photos of the site, pretty much from the same perspective. Here we see the house or the structure, which would be demolished and replaced by what we just saw. And then one more photo coming from the other angle, really looking northward. We can see again the building to be demolished in the middle. And we can see how Adams here is a mix of some club and residential space of various sizes and shapes. That's all we have for now, and hopefully can answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you very much. Is there somebody here from the petitioner who would like to follow up? Mr. Lee.
Yes, Mr. Chair, good evening. For the record, Lawrence Lee, Rosenberg, Friedman, and Lee on behalf of the petitioner. We have the design team here as well too for tonight's hearing. With your permission, I would like to share my screen, please.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you all see that?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So Michael is a tough act to follow, so I'm going to do my best here. He did cover a lot of great information. There's been some updates, pardon me, as to the petition as a result of neighborhood meetings and our communications with our city councilors, Ward 1 councilors. So not to regurgitate what Michael had already covered, we are in a business district. As Michael indicated in his other slide, there's a lot of residential uses along Adams Street currently. Our property is an existing non-conforming 3-family that we're asking to convert into a 5-unit residential building. One of the things that may not be quite evident is that we are effectively have one direct abutter, that it being the Sons of Italy building and their property. So for those who are familiar with the site, I'll show an aerial photograph after this, but their property wraps around on both sides of our property. There's a parking lot in the back, and there's a right-of-way driveway that belongs to them as well. We have 6,000 square feet of land, and again, it's a non-conforming 3. This is the site aerial that shows the driveway on the Sons of Italy side. Our property's right over here, our existing driveway right up against the left side of their building, and parking currently is over here for us. This is just another slide showing the requested relief that Michael had showed on his chart, so I'm not going to repeat that. The proposed project will show, again, this is a 5-unit energy efficient all electric residential building. There will be 6 parking spaces, one of the points of clarification that Michael asked for, inclusive of 1 HP van parking space. So I'm going to go through that floor plan. EV charging stations will be available for all parking spaces. 2 of the units in the back will meet the MAAB Group 1 accessibility requirements. Both will have elevator access. What we're calling 3 of the units of the 5 are what we call townhome style units. They are more towards the front end of the building, with the 2 flats, if you will, are towards the back. There will be bike storage, as well as additional storage that you can store perhaps smaller bicycles, kids' bicycles and things like that in private lobbies under the stairway. The view of Adams that Michael had shown earlier as well. One of the key points that I wanted to highlight is that there currently exists our driveway, which again butts right up against the Sons of Italy building, which is a big blind spot for pedestrians walking in this direction on Adams Street. So that's going to be eliminated. You'll notice that currently our building has a 0 setback from the front. Our new building is going to be pushed back, which I think helps a lot with safety and sight distances. Here's some of the renderings. So Michael does not have the current or most up-to-date facade improvements that have been made within the last week or so. We've met with our neighbors 3 separate times. We've had all of them were held in Joe Esposito's karate studio down the street. Those were well attended by our neighbors. They were also attended by the Ward 1 councilors on various occasions, the most recent being within the last week or so, week to 10 days. Again, that's where some of the last most recent changes, again, the garage doors being added. There's some warm lighting in the front here, which helps with the aesthetics. The front entryway has been made a little bit more prominent, so it's more welcoming. There's also a front door access to the front townhouse lobby area that will be added as well. So all in all, these are cosmetic upgrades that we think aesthetically improves the aesthetics of the project. This side is a alleyway that pre-exists as well in the prior design that Michael had showed. This does lead access to the back townhouse and the 2 units in the back. There are 6 parking spaces. There's 3 here. This is the HP van accessible parking space. This is the lobby area. I'm going to scroll and zoom in a little bit just to give you a better view. Hopefully you can see it better. Pardon me there. This is the lobby area for the 2 units, what I call flats. The 2 units are under 1,000 square feet. They're just about 900 square feet or so. Again, both will meet the MAAB Group 1 accessibility requirements. There is elevator access to this. So this is as close to the HP space as we can make it. So there's 4 parking spaces here. We moved, this is a little bit different from what the site plan or the floor plan that Michael has in his possession, is the relocation of, this is a dumpster So that, again, this is on the first floor underneath the building. It is covered. It is partially enclosed. When I say partially enclosed, it means that there are columns and barriers along the way, but it is not fully covered with all four sides with walls. It is certain parts of it you can see through. Stairways into each of the townhouses. So for the two in the middle, 2 more parking spaces here. This is the front entryway that I mentioned earlier. This being the walkway in. The main front entry and mailboxes are going to be located here for all the units. This lobby serves the front unit only. This is the second unit. This is the third unit. And again, the back here will serve units 4 and 5. What's also added, again, the other garage doors. This was not in Michael's site plan that we submitted. These were changes that were made within the last 10 days or so. This allows the pause, if you will, pausing of cars coming in and out, again, adding to the, we believe, to the pedestrian safety on Adams. This is where the existing driveway is. So this location where my cursor is, as you can see, there's a big blind spot here where you wouldn't even be able to see a pedestrian walking until you really get over the existing sidewalk. So by pushing the building back 10.5 feet, this between this point and the garage is an additional 8 feet or so. So this is really a full car length where a car could stop, pause, open the garage doors, get in. Likewise, the car will have to pause, open the garage door, and get out. And that will alert pedestrians walking by our property. These are floor plans on the second and third floors. They're all in your packet, so I'm not going to go through them unless you have specific questions. This is the roof plan. We will have solar-ready roof. That's part of the petition. Here's the landscape plan. This is an updated landscape plan that we will be submitting for Michael. We did do some touch-ups. Front entryway was touched up. And we will perhaps modify slightly this particular area. We were asked by a representative of the Sons of Italy to push some of the landscaping towards our building to give the existing driveway a little bit more space for snow plowing purposes. So that's one of the reasons why we may move these bushes back towards our building. And then these are the sustainability strategies: all electric building, heat pumps, EV charging stations for all parking spaces, solar ready roof, closed cell insulation, energy efficient windows, low flow plumbing fixtures, and Energy Star appliances. Those will all be incorporated into our project. So hopefully I answered, Michael, feel free to correct me if I did not answer your questions, but anyone else, please feel free.
Mr. Gliebe, do you have anything else to add before we go to the public?
Nope, at this time, no. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. All right, we go to the public, 2 minutes. State your name and address. Are there people here in the chambers that would like to come up and speak? If you would like to, come on up. Sure.
My name is Ruggiero Serqua. I live 183 Adam Street, right across the building, the one built. And I don't speak good English, okay? You guys understand it right away. You know better, no? Okay? And I think the building, they gotta build something, that's for sure. But that's too big. The quantity, the land, is too big for everybody. Nobody come because they checking on the computer what they do anyway, no. But they promised me to come. I want to ask you a question. When do we have the last meeting done in Esposito? I asked, the architect, I asked, the guys, I asked, the people there, how tall, is the building?
How tall?
Tall is the building.
You'd like to know how tall it is?
Yes.
Okay. Miss.
I believe it was 34.86.
Say it again.
I'm just kind of checking to make sure.
Michael is
It's
correct.
34.86.
And the exist-
34.
That's correct. And sorry to chime in, Mr. Chair and Michael. For clarification, the existing house is about 36 feet, slightly taller, and the proposed is 34.86, as
Because
Michael pointed out. So
Okay,
it
it's
is
smaller
slightly
than the,
shorter.
it's shorter than the existing building.
Because
Correct.
I ask, the architect, I ask, just give it to me, the print never show up to give it to me. That's the reason, I ask, to find out how much is tall, okay? Okay, because now that's perfect, and that's okay now, I can see. My another question is, when the snow, where they pour the snow?
What is your plan for snow removal, Mr. Lee?
Well,
gotta
we
remove
really
the snow.
only have a very short driveway in the front. So there's actually at the existing house actually has more of a snow issue than the proposed. There really is no more pavement. I think Roger, who lives diagonally across from this location, has a bigger driveway than we do. After if this proposal is approved, our impervious is reduced.
Okay, so the only paving is the driveway up to the garage door at the front of the property.
That is correct.
Okay, I assume that could be done by hand, by anybody who lives in the building or management? Right, okay, next question.
The question is that because, they have, the parking, they go inside, in the front entrance, okay, on Irem Street. And that's real dangerous for the kids. They go by over there, especially in the summer, when the time they don't go too much, the kids. In the summer, there's a lot of kids, they go up and down with the bicycle, run. That's real dangerous. Something happen because the cars, they go inside, the parking, the 6 cars, they go inside the parking there. And then out, I'm afraid, sometimes it can happen something to the kids because from their sensitively, they cover up the vision, okay? Especially the kids, they don't care. They run, they don't look, they don't think about, if they happen something, okay? That's for sure. Because I saw, right now, not now, but I saw, I saw sometimes, the kids, some kids, they save the life for like this, for nothing, okay? Because people, they come with the car from the back of the San Italy, okay? And they go straight, Orem Street, and you don't see nothing there.
So that dangerous situation.
That's a dangerous situation.
Exists right now with this driveway, with the Sons of Italy
Now
coming
that's more big, okay? Because it's plus the Sons of Italy, they come by down. And plus near the cars from the building, both the cars, they go in the same time out, okay? And the kids, and maybe your father too, maybe you have kids, you want your kids healthy all the time anyway, okay? It's better, everybody over here, they check on this, okay? Because that's dangerous.
Okay, thank you.
And when they come, the truck, rubbish truck, where they park, they get out, the rubbish, inside, the building, where they park. In the middle of the Irem Street?
Mr. Lee, garbage, how's that going to be handled?
I believe those barrels will be those that you can push out onto a truck, perhaps a front loader that will take no more than the city trucks that take our regular bins on a weekly basis. So if the truck has to stop for that short period of time to take the front loader, it really wouldn't take that much more time than the city trucks that take our regular trash and recycling on a weekly basis.
I think so. I don't think so because there's a lot of traffic in Irem Street, and we go crazy. because it's a lot of units in Erem Street. When they come at the time, the rubbish day, a lot of times, we got to stop. I see a lot of cars stop, because they make a longer line, and that's a lot of traffic in Erem Street too, okay? And for me, it's too many units. For me, there's too many units, they want to build over there because it's not enough for land. It's everything, close to everything. That's really not tied up, okay? Look like, so what's it called, the place is in Brazil, where is an old house, one on the top of the NAD, okay? They have one name. Maybe the lady over there, she knows the council anyway, know the name, okay? Is the Gasba, they call it the Gasba, is too many units, all small land. That's too many. I'm not talking about the high now because that's okay. Now it's too many units.
Okay, thank you very much.
And what about for the kids?
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anybody else in the chamber wish to come up and speak before we go to people in Zoom land? I got you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Sir, you coming up? Okay. Come on up and state your name and address.
I live beside Roger.
Could you give us your address and your name, please?
181 Adam Street, Newton. Arthur Trudeau.
Arthur what?
Trudeau.
Got that? Okay, go ahead.
The whole thing is just too much. You're putting 5 pounds of shit in a 3-pound bag. There's 3 units there now. If they put 3 units back, there'd be no problem. But putting 6 units, you're taking the whole space. In other words, if there's this much land, you're filling it with a building.
Sir, sorry, that's 5 units. I just want to correct for the record.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said 6. It's yeah,
I mean,
5. Go continue.
It's still too many. 3 units would be fine. That's my complaint in parking. How can you have 5 units and have only 6 parking spaces? What happens when somebody comes over the house to visit? Where are they going to park? There's just no parking spaces. And across the street from this one, Danny's going to put up knock down the building and put something there. I mean, it's just getting too congested. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else here in the chamber? Okay. All right, we're going to go to Zoom. And we have Terry Sorrow.
Hi.
Hi,
Terry Sorrow in Zoomland, 44 Cook Street. So I attended all these 3 meetings, and I think you hear from the neighborhood. A lot of the neighborhood are on Zoom, and a lot cannot do Zoom. So, anyways, so we've met with Lawrence and at Esposito's, and yes, it's 6,000 square feet, 5 units. It should be 3. There's 2,000 square feet and 2 900 square feet. Now, if everybody has a car, that's 5 cars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you got 1 extra space. So where are guests going to park? And I think every councilor knows Adam Street. It's like it's getting built up, cars, traffic, and like Roger said I'm concerned too about the in, out. And when you say the Sons of Italy doesn't get that much traffic in, only when they have a function going on. It's too big, and it's too big. We've been saying it to Lawrence, we've been saying it to the architect, we've been saying it. I get it. A developer comes in, they see the land, they go for a special permit, and they develop the land. But it's all buildings. Instead of being Newton green space, we're becoming Newton cement space. So I hope that land use will look closely at the 5 units on 6,000 square feet. It should be 3 family. And I don't understand why they have to have 2 900 square feet. It's small. And then we have to have an elevator. And, you know, we've brought our concerns. Yes, they made changes. Yes, they pushed it over. And yes, you know, there's only a little bit of snow, but that driveway, doesn't that driveway go all the way down? So I would assume that's going to have to be plowed, never mind just shoveled. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sauro. JNS, please state your name and address. Unmute, please. You still haven't unmuted. There you go.
Okay. Janine Stewart at 251 Adams Street. And I just wanted to add on to what Terry said. My understanding is that 3 of the units are about 2,000 square feet. And to me, anybody who's going to buy something that big is going to have at least 2 cars, or say 2 cars. So 6 spots for 5 units when 3 of them are approximately 2,000 square feet, to me, is just ridiculous. And the other thing I wanted to point out, the green space, they're considering the border as green space. And to me, that's not green space. It's just, they can't build on that. So they're putting a little grass and shrubs. So to me, that's not green space. It's just like they're fitting as much as they possibly can into that spot.
Okay, thank you. I want some clarification. You know, we've seen one plan with 6 spaces. We've seen another with 7. What is it? How many parking spaces are we talking about, Mr. Lee?
There are 6 parking spaces, and I can reshare my screen to show that parking area. And I also would like to refer back to the existing aerial photograph. That way helps give some context as well, too.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So can you all see that first of all?
Yes.
Wonderful. So I wanted to point out again the existing conditions of the site, which is basically one giant piece of asphalt with a building. In terms of cars, the number of cars, you can see the cars that are lined back here. You can clearly see the number of spaces that can fit. Historically speaking, there's been at least 6 cars that are parked in the back. So we're really not doing anything more in terms of traffic that's been discussed. In terms of any green space, they're non-existent really at the moment. And you can clearly tell from the aerial photograph. So I think that's one context I wanted to clarify. And then I'm going to scroll back a way down to...
Mr. Lee, is that big paved area in the back of your property, the parking lot for the Sons of Italy?
This area right here where my cursor is?
Yeah, what is that?
That belongs to the Sons.
So when they have gatherings, they can fill up that lot?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and I'm going to scroll back down to the garage level. So hopefully you can see that there are 6 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Thank you. I think there was an early iteration that showed 7, but thank you.
That is correct. Yep, thank you.
Okay. All right, anybody else from the public wish to speak before we take it into...
Can you hear me? Anthony Pellegrini?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Anthony Pellegrini, 56 Clinton Street, Newton, Mass. I've been to all of the meetings myself, and you know, they did some changes on this. They lowered the roof, they pulled it away from the Sons of Italy building because there was gonna be an issue with where the snow was gonna build up and rainwater going onto our building. And they realized that, they moved it, but, I kind of agree with some of the, my friends and neighbors that, there is only 3 units at the existing space, regardless of how much asphalt's there, regardless of how much parking's there, there's only 3 units there. So they did their due diligence as far as the neighbors is in lowering the building, I believe. I did have issue with what they talked about snow removal, but there's no snow removal. You can shovel that all you want. Where are you gonna put it? You're gonna put it on your walkway, or you're gonna remove it or push it out in the street. It's only a little patch, but snow builds up, and you have to put it someplace. So hopefully they would address that. And as far as the shrubbery, one of the issues now is that Esposito himself has huge bushes there coming down the left side driveway where the Sons of Italy exits. In that building, they also exit out of a side driveway, not just the front. Right now, they exit out of a side driveway. So the less shrubbery that they can put on the left side of that, coming out, the safer people will be, especially if they have cars coming out of the garage. Now, how they're going to mitigate the speed or like Roger was right. If someone comes out of the Sons of Italy driveway, the existing driveway, and that garage at the same time, you're not going to see the second car. If you're a child and one of them goes out from, if you're walking down towards the Sons of Italy, that second car can come out of that driveway pretty fast. So I don't know if they're going to do a light or something like that, or something to make it aware that, because they're side by side. Anyways, so I'm not against the project myself, but they are stuffing 5 units in there where there was 3. They did make some changes, and they did put the garage doors up where it was wide open. I didn't realize that they didn't have garage doors when I was looking at the previous plans. They did do that. But it is a real dangerous area, so you might want to consider access and egress out of, out of their garages and where you're going to put the snow. So if anybody else have any questions for me.
Thank you.
Go right ahead.
Thank you very much.
But there was a lot of thought going through, that for that building to appease everybody, but you can't appease everybody, and that is a lot of units there. It is stuffed in there, but there isn't enough parking space in the building, I believe, because they're going to flow out in the street, and it's tough out there. So the ball's in your court.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate your time.
Thank you. Mr. Lee, are these condos or rentals?
These are going to be condos, Mr.
These
Chair.
are going to be condos. So the people buying these units are going to know exactly how many parking spaces they come with.
That is correct.
And the ones that have one will buy this if they have one. If they have a second one, that's going to be a complication that many people have in this city if they have a driveway that isn't big enough to house all of their cars. But typically in a condo situation, if you know you have one space, you won't buy it if you have 2 cars, right?
That is correct, and that is also from my experience with other projects that with similar situations where fewer parking spaces are provided.
And presently, please don't take my questions to assume what I think. I'm asking the questions for everybody to ponder and think about. 6 cars are parking there right now. So you would essentially have the same number of cars coming out of this property as you do right now with the 3 units, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to make one clarification, adding a point actually. I wanted to thank the Ward 1 councilors because we have been in constant communications with them throughout this whole process. Councilor Greenberg, in speaking with her, she inquired about a voluntary contribution by the developer as it relates to cost going towards Adam Street pedestrian or traffic calming studies or features. We did, and also for affordable housing purposes. And my client did approve a $10,000 voluntary contribution for those purposes. And I can let Councilor Greenberg elaborate more on that. Thank you.
What's that got to do with this project?
Excuse me, Mr. Pellegrini, please mute. Thank you. Okay, I'll call on you if you want to speak again. I'm sorry, you don't have your name on here. Again, in your kitchen, JNS.
I think that's me. They keep saying there were 6 cars there before, but they're adding on 2 units. I just want to point that out. So it's 5 units, not just 3.
Totally understand that. You can have a problem with the number of units, but we have to just be commonsensical and fair here. If there were 6 cars coming out of that driveway with the building all the way up against the sidewalk, that is as dangerous or more dangerous than 6 cars coming out of the garage set back from the sidewalk and another 8 feet before you come out. It just has to be said. I'm just listening and
I'm
making.
not just talking about that. I'm saying that there's going to be overflow of cars in those 5 units.
You're assuming that everybody who moves in has 2 cars, and that may be true, and they're going to have to, just like somebody without a driveway on Adams Street has to find somewhere to put their cars. Now, a lot of the condo purchases that we're tracking, when there's 1 space, it's a family with 1 car, and that's what we see, and that's it's just what it is. So the fear of overflow parking on Adams Street, and I don't know what's going to happen, but right now we have no parking in the wintertime. Some people want that to end, some people don't. But as it is now, somebody who buys that unit can't say, well, for 3 months I'm going to put it on the street, because they can't. Okay, so I'm just thinking through the parking situation, the danger of cars coming out to hit kids. When it's the same amount of cars, and when you have the Sons of Italy next door with a parking lot that can probably house 50 cars, and during events they're coming out as well. So we just have to be fair about the characterization. Yes, 5 units is more than 3, and there's nothing I'm going to argue about that. Ms. Sorrow, do you have something else to say?
Yeah, I guess we can agree to disagree about when someone like purchases a condo and says, okay, only 1 car. And they can say, yeah, only 1 car. And this is what's creating a lot of happening here with these projects. You know, they say 1 car, and then they have 2 cars, and then they're in the street, and it's a nightmare. So I guess I can agree to disagree, because just like here on California Street, a realtor was trying to sell a condo, and it was like 2 cars, and they said, oh, don't worry about the other parking, even though there's an overnight parking ban, you can park at the post 440, so don't worry about it. So to say only 1 car and people know about it is just, in my opinion, I mean, that's like discrimination. You can't say to someone you can only have 1 car. Yeah, they're aware, but like I said, we're not opposed of, he has to put something there. What we're opposed of is the 5. And if, like you said, if it was a 3-family, they would be set back. It wouldn't be so big. So there'd be more land, more green space. This is a bigger building on 6,000 square feet. Thank you.
Thank you. The 3-family right now has a lesser setback. If they kept it as a 3 and renovated the building and added on, it could still have that front setback. So just...
I wouldn't say renovate the building. I'd say knock it down.
That's not up to us.
Right.
They could go either way. But thank you, Ms. Sorrow. Mr. Pellegrini, did you have anything else before we go to the council?
Yeah, I just like to address right now, and Mr. Lee didn't elaborate on that. Maybe it's he missed this, but there's 2 driveways there. There's not 1 driveway. The 1 driveway that comes up beside the Sons of Italy is for one side of the unit, and then the other side is used by the other unit. It may not be used now because they're cutting it off, but that's where you get the 6 cars. They don't just go out one driveway, just to let you know. They go out the Sons of Italy driveway from a side driveway, as Mr. Esposito did all his life and smashed into Mr. Lupo's fence, which will be mitigated when they change the project. But I'm just worried about when they're going out both at the same time, whether they're from, the by right driveway or the garages. And maybe, Mr. Lee can help us mitigate that somehow, going down forward.
Mr. Lee?
But there is 2 driveways, just to let you know.
Yep, Mr. Lee?
Lawrence,
Yeah.
Lawrence, you know that, right?
Yes, there. Yes. So there
It's
are.
used exclusively right now.
Okay, hold on. Let him go ahead.
I want to
Mr. Lee?
show you the driveway picture of the front facade, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay, just this may be helpful. So this is the site. We have that. This one goes to our backyard, if you will. This is the Sons of Italy. It's a right of way that we have the right to use currently, but we will no longer be using that. We're going to be cutting that off, and we're going to exclusively use our own driveway with the new project. So this is going to be eliminated. We no longer will be using this. This belongs again to the Sons of Italy, and they were asking us to widen that a little bit because that gives them the width to plow their driveways, which is what we're going to be doing. So we have a slightly wider driveway for them so that we didn't butt up against it. But we will no longer be using this driveway as well. So we will only exclusively use our own driveway going forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to take it into the council now. Councilor Greenberg.
Oh, thank you, Mr. I just want to make sure my neighbors who live on Adams Street know that I live on Adams Street and totally understand their perspective and understand that right now in our neighborhood in Nonantum, we have many parcels of land going up for redevelopment, and that there are a lot of concerns because they see a lot of changes going on in their neighborhood. And change is difficult, change is hard, but it's going to happen. And the best that we can do here at Land Use is make these projects the best that we can. I think this project, after much work with the neighborhood, with much work with the petitioner, that it's the best that can be for that spot. Currently, there are 3 units. It's going to 5. 2 of the units are very small. These units have an elevator. They are MAAB Group 1 adaptable units, which would be perfect for seniors in our neighborhood who want to downsize, who would like to sell their homes in Nonantum, who are elderly or have some disability. They would be able to purchase one of these small condos, use an elevator, and still live in their neighborhood next to their church, next to their neighbors, and still be part of the neighborhood. I think these 2 units would be such a bonus for the neighborhood. I'm not concerned about the parking because just as we said, these people who are buying these units know they are only getting 1 car space. I'm not concerned about the parking. I think it will be okay. This is a sustainable building. It has an elevator. It has green space. It's attractive looking. They have made many changes to the facade of the building to make it more warm and welcoming. They've listened to the concerns of the Sons of Italy, worked directly with them. The building is shorter. It will not dump snow on the Sons of Italy. They have more privacy for their functions in the backyard. I think this is a good project. The developer has also offered to contribute $5,000 for traffic calming on Adams Street. Adams Street was currently decided not to be called a safety zone, but we can work with the traffic department to bring traffic calming to our street. So that hopefully this $5,000 will help do that. The developer is also going to put $5,000 into the Affordable Housing Trust, which has just started here in our city. So these are all wonderful selling points for this project. So I urge my colleagues to vote for this. I think it's a good project and it will be ultimately good for Nonantum. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to let everybody know, all three counselors from Ward 1 are here. Allison, Councilor Leary is here as well. Ms. Sorrow, is your hand, can you take your hand down, please? Thank you. Councilor Laredo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a few questions, and I realize we're not going to vote on this evening, so I'll try to be brief. As for the parking, I agree that people will know what they're getting, particularly with condos. However, as I just have to remind my colleagues, we have folks who know exactly what they rented or bought in the city and have then come before us 4, 5, 6, 10 years later and said, I know what I bought, I know what I rented, but I need more parking. We shouldn't have a winter parking ban. So, you know, anybody who is advocating that we should be limiting the number of cars on a site can't have it both ways. And I just have to put that out there. Mr. Lee, could you remind us of the size of each of these units?
Yes, the townhouse units, there are 3 of them. They're all under 2,000 square feet. So they're about 1950 approximately each of the townhouses. The 2 flats are, I just want to make sure I'm precise here. One is 904. No, they're both 904, 904 square feet.
So, you know, as far as the parking units go, the smaller ones certainly are really small units by anything that we see in the city. And so, you know, I'm personally not worried that those would attract, you know, or folks who needed 2 cars. Pretty unlikely, it seems to me. And I think it makes sense. I think that really aids the parking issue here. Are you going to be selling the parking spaces with the units, or are they going to be somehow deeded separately?
Haven't really discussed that with my client, frankly.
I mean, it's not my place to suggest what you do here, but certainly a unit that has 2,000 square feet or roughly 2,000 square feet might very well attract at least 2 people or a family that could use 2 cars, whereas a 900 square foot unit might attract someone who doesn't need a car at all or doesn't drive. So I would suggest you think that through. I'm not sure that's in our purview necessarily. I do like the fact that these are condominium units. I think we should be encouraging more home ownership in the city. I like the fact that you have 2 really small units. I think that's very positive. I would like, before you come back, just to make sure that we address Mr. Pellegrini's concern about exit and entry onto the street. Don't have to do that tonight. In fact, I'd ask that you not, but want to make sure that you talked with Ms. Wewell and planning about that, just so we have some assurance that we're set there. And other than that, Mr. Chair, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 things. Councilor Laredo, you just mentioned that people are coming back complaining they don't have enough parking. Do you have specific data that I don't have and some don't have?
Mr. Chair, read all the emails we get from folks who own or rent real estate in the city who complain that they do not have enough parking for their vehicles. And they're the ones who write to us and ask us to lift the winter parking ban. So yes, there's plenty of people who knew exactly what they bought or exactly what they rented, but now we're not satisfied with it. And it's their prerogative to come to us and say that. But when we are making deliberate policy decisions to limit the number of parking spaces, which we are doing for a whole host of environmental and other reasons, we can't have it both ways. And that's the reminder I'm just going to continue to urge my colleagues to keep in mind. Thank you.
Yeah, I will point out that those letters we're getting when we're debating whether to raise the winter parking are not from people from new developments. They are from people who have small lots and no driveways, or a driveway just for one car. That's my understanding of the emails that we get. I want to ask you another question, Councilor
Mr. Chair, could I just
Laredo.
respond to that? Those folks knew exactly what they were buying or renting when they moved in. And whether it's the new developments where they frankly haven't been here long enough, we're not going to see it with folks who move in the first year or two. They know what they're getting. It's when they've been here 5, 10 years, they have a growing family, they have more cars. That's when you're going to start to see it. And you know, anyone in this room who may have started off with one car often goes to 2 or even 3 if they have teenagers driving. So, or adult children living at home.
I think you're mistaking the housing stock we're talking about, but I guess we'll continue to use the agree to disagree. I'd also like you to explain your statement that we'll deal with things when they come back.
I don't think we have a board order before us tonight, do we?
Not sure.
We don't. There's none in the packet.
I'm asking planning if there's a board order, and if there was, is there not? And if that's so.
There was not one in the Friday packet. We do have one if needed.
One if needed. Okay. All right. Thank you. So your assumption was no board order, no vote. I can't doubt you on that one. All right. Councillor Downs.
Thank you, Chair. I just had Councilor Laredo covered one of my questions. My other question was, people keep talking about snow removal. I just want to be really clear. As I read the plans, it looked like all of the parking was covered. It was just the little area on the sidewalk, which I would hope the condo owners would, or the condo management would clear. That would need snow maintenance. Am I correct in that?
Yes, Councillor Downs. It is just that little area in the front of the garage doors, and there's an overhang of our building as well to about 8 feet. So you're really just talking about 10 feet of pavement, 10 by 20 pavement, and then the walkway along the Sons of Italy side of the building, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
I can show you the plan if that makes it easier for you.
No, that's fine. I wasn't able to access or find the plans online, and so tonight was the first time I saw it. So I was trying to be as quick a study as I could. I like that it's got smaller units because we need smaller units. I like that it's all electric. I like that it's accessible with an elevator. It gives, you know, we don't have enough of that one-story living for seniors, and I like that you're going small on the parking. I would also encourage you to think about unbundling parking from the unit, because then you'll be able to offer further discounts to people who want just a place to live and don't need a car. We do want people who live car light to come to our dense walkable neighborhoods, and this is definitely one of them. So if there were a council order ready, I'd be ready to vote on it otherwise, and vote favorably on it. But if not tonight, that's also fine.
Ms. Wewell.
Thanks.
Ms. Wewell, Mr. Gleba, we usually, you know, I for one don't know how we ever vote on anything without a council order to look at and review and go over. What was the decision to not have one tonight? Was it an assumption that this would take more than one meeting?
Well, there was that. There was the expectation of updated plans, which we don't have.
Okay, so if I really need some communication from you guys in planning, I need to hear that. We do not have a council order because you don't have final plans. Is that it?
Well, we have a council order that if you wanted to substitute new plans in before it goes to council, we have pretty much a standard what we usually use for this kind of project.
So if
I
we
may-
were to,
if I-
go ahead,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Lee.
If I may, I think the changes that may be different are very slight between what Michael has and what we updated in the last 10 days approximately, based off of the request that we received from Ward 1 councilors and the neighbors. So it's really the garage doors, clarification that it is 6 parking stalls, and just some slight facade modification. So I'll be more than happy to submit those and upload those in the system by tomorrow for Michael. And we would like to have the meeting voted out tonight to not waste your time again for another hearing.
If there was a vote tonight, Mr. Gleba, do you have a council order ready for us to review?
We have a Word document ready for you to review.
Okay, well, we just need to understand what's going on here. Councilor Leary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to associate my comments with Councilor Greenberg and Councilor Downs. I think this is a good project that checks all the boxes that we're looking for more housing in village centers. I also like the 2 small units, that it's an elevator building. I would support the unbundling of parking. I think that's an excellent point. I like that it's all electric, that it's home ownership. And Nonantum is one of the most walkable villages in Newton. You can get around easily with doing many errands on foot or bicycle. And if you need a car, there's parking. I think the 6 parking spaces is enough for this. Again, you know my feelings about parking. The more parking you offer, the more cars you get. Let me think. I also think it's quite an improvement over the existing structure with 2 very low visibility, dangerous driveways. And I'm actually more concerned about the huge curb cuts, especially on Watertown Street and other parts of Adams Street, that I think allow for more conflict between pedestrians and cars. And I would like to see that addressed on a separate issue when we talk about pedestrian and bicycle safety in the city. So I went to the meetings on this project. I saw them work with the community, with the Sons. Of course, not everybody's going to be happy with it, but I think it's what's important to me, that it provides more home ownership units. It's a much more, it is more attractive as well. So I do support it. I think a lot of hard work went into this, and I'm very appreciative of Councilor Greenberg for negotiating for funds for traffic calming and for a contribution to the Affordable Housing Fund. And I want to go on record that I support the overnight parking ban for the very reasons that Councilor Laredo mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Oliver.
All right, thank you, Chair. I will be incredibly brief. I agree with Allison. I agree with Maria. I hear the neighbors. Adams Street is tough when it comes to parking. I don't think that the configuration of this building is going to be a significant addition to that burden of parking. And whether or not this is voted out tonight, I would look forward to supporting this at the full council. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Councilor Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I just want to say to everybody on this call, happy Valentine's Day. Let's see. Mr. Lee, where am I? So I was going through the planning memo, and the Urban Design Commission said that the project was too big and too dense for the site approximately, I think it was 11 months ago. And I was just wondering what has changed to the, or what has changed to bring down the density to the project since then?
Very good question. So that project, the first iteration was a 4-story building and a bigger building. So the comments that you see in that memo relate to that first design. So since then, we've reduced the size of the building. We pulled it away from the Sons of Italy building, so to effectively what you see today. So the neighbors and the city Ward 1 councilors did see both iterations, and that's where their comments come from in terms of the improvements that we've made.
Okay. Well, what was the FAR when you presented to them back then, and what is it now?
I believe it was over two in terms of the FAR. Currently is 1.4. What was this? I want to get you the right decimal. 1.41. Thank you.
1.41, and you said it was over 2 last year?
Correct.
Okay, good. One of the neighbors who commented tonight said that this project was lacking green space. And I was just looking at other homes on that stretch of Adams Street going towards the north, and their projects are set back far enough. I think there was 3 or 4 of them, and there was not a lot, but you know, there was small front yards where there is green space. And is there any green space in the front of this building for that you're proposing? I know when
Yes.
when you had the aerial view, when you were showing the parking lot for the building to the south, we could clearly see that there were yards in the front of the building. So I was just wondering.
Yes, if would you like to see the photographs to make it easier?
Please.
Okay, let me just share that screen really quickly. And I want to just go back to that screen for you. This is what we saw last. Let me just reduce that. So this is just the bushes on the side. There's really not much you can see from these pictures. We don't really have a yard. There's one bush here, I think. So that's really the extent of landscaping that we currently have. There's another picture here, which shows just some small patches of grass barely around the building currently. We do have a landscape plan, and I'm going to scroll to that quickly. Pardon me, just bear with me here. So there is this front yard, if you will, space. There is this length, the entire length of green space that we have. So these are all new, and there's some patches of bushes wherever we can fit it. So this is an improvement. We are decreasing the impervious surfaces by just under 300 square feet, and increasing the open space number by about 400 square feet or so from existing conditions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. But what you showed is nothing like what is on the homes to the north, where there is green space in the front where the project is set back. You have it on the side. Are people able to, dare I say, walk on the side? Are they able to access that, or is it just a place that's just open?
Let me just go back so that I can understand exactly what you're referring to, okay? So are you talking about walking along here?
Yes, exactly. Is that going to be accessible, or is there can you describe what's going on over there?
So this is just going to be bushes. It's not intended to be a pathway. The pathway that goes to the back is here. This is a designated walkway. So I can show you the rendering. That could be helpful. This is a yard space. So let me just go back to the rendering here, which I hope you can see. So that's the bushes along to the left side, if you will. This is the front, quote unquote, small yard area. This is the path walkway that leads from the sidewalk to the back of the building. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does answer my question, but it's nothing like what is to the north with the homes on Adams Street. It doesn't, there's very little, in my opinion, green space and less than what is on the other homes. I'll move on to some other questions. Are you undergrounding the utilities?
I don't know if that's been discussed specifically. Mariana, do you have any idea if that was planned out that way?
I'm not too sure about that. I should say that I need to confirm that. It's very likely, but I would like to confirm first before I can say yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, I guess if we're not, I don't know if we're voting on this tonight. I'm confused on this one, but if we are not voting on it tonight, if we could get an answer for the next meeting, please.
Yeah, if I may, I think one of the things that came up in terms of undergrounding utilities is some clarification. I think it's going to be a site-by-site call by the city council because of the number of utility poles that are impacted. So as you may remember, one of my projects, we had a lot of utility poles on the street.
Yep.
Likewise, we also have a lot of utility poles here. So if this is something that we can work out with the planning department, I would love to be able to do that. There are utility poles that are directly in front of our property that I want to make sure that we can get access to and be able to carry out the promise that you're requiring us if should it be undergrounding of utilities.
Okay, thanks. Let's see. So I think if I heard you correct earlier, you said that the building will be all electric. I think that's great. But I was going through the engineering section of the memo, and I'll just read this verbatim. With the exception of natural gas service. That's what it says, with the exception of natural gas service. And then it goes, all utility trenches within the right-of-way shall be backfilled, and so on, so on. It seems to think that, engineering seems to think that there's going to be natural gas on site.
Yeah, there's not going to be any, I think that you're probably reading a section that is probably their version of a boilerplate. We've seen these enough in the other special permit projects, but we can certainly make it a condition in the special permit to give you the level of comfort that the natural gas, this is an electric building, no gas.
All right, good. Well, yes, that should be in the council order when we get there.
Absolutely.
And this is to planning. I noticed that, also sticking with the engineering memo, that there is a small I&I payment, approximately $21,000 for this project. It says it's going to be used for mitigation purposes. I was just wondering who determines how that money or what that money will be spent on. Is that the Ward 1 councilors? Is that planning? I'm just curious.
So historically, with larger projects, we would work with other city departments to come up with a recommendation as those funds. But with smaller projects, I don't think the funds go so far to identify a very specific project in the vicinity in the area. So I think in this case, we would just use standard language that, like with any other mitigation payment, requires it to be appropriated at the city council level. So the city council would decide ultimately when those payments are made.
Okay.
And come in.
All right. I'm done. Thank you, Mr. Lee and Ms. Wewell.
Councilor Bowman.
Thank you. I'll try to keep this brief because we've heard so many great statements, especially from our Ward 1 colleagues. I will just reiterate one point around accessibility is it's fabulous that we have these two smaller units, the 900 square foot units that are fully accessible, but we also have the 3 townhouses with the capability to have an elevator, which will solve the biggest accessibility problem there. So I can't remember a project that we've done in 3.5 years of the 3 years of me being here where all 5 units have this level of accessibility, and I think this is exciting. People with physical disabilities are the most discriminated folks in the housing market as far as not having housing that meets their needs. So I think this is fabulous. No surprise, I'm not concerned about the parking at all. And the all-electric is great. The last item I'd like to just talk about is sight lines. And as a counselor who spent 15 years thinking about how to make it safer for children to walk and bike in the city, I think the current situation there is really is deplorable, and I think this greatly improves it. I think the exit of the driveway, as it will be approved for the Sons of Italy, they'll actually have one of the things that will make the sightline a little better is that green space that's between it, because sightlines are all about angles, and so you have a clear angle of the driveway, the grass, and then the building, and the building is set back, so the sightlines will be very good. I do have one question for Mr. Lee. Did you say that you're reconstructing the driveway for the Sons of Italy to make it wider?
No, so not reconstructing the driveway, but they've asked us when we're doing our project to keep a little bit extra space for their driveway.
Where the plantings are. Okay, great. Because I was
Right,
going to say
exactly.
that just to have a
Yep.
suggestion for a way to make the driveway safer. But from that aspect, I think this is a great project. I think it's great that this property could be redeveloped with such a beautiful site, beautiful design, and bring 5 families where we now have 3 to eat in the restaurants and shop in the stores and support the local businesses. And it will attract people who are car light or car free. And we do have many residents in Nonanta, more than any other village in Newton of people I've met who are currently living in Nonantum without a car. So I think this is a great opportunity, and we rarely have 900 square foot condos for sale. I think that's a great opportunity, and I am very excited with the opportunity to vote yes on this project. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Oliver, you took your hand down, you're done? Okay, Councilor Greenberg.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I know it's a late hour, but I was wondering if we could take a poll of the committee to see if we should move forward and go through the board, the council order, and get it done tonight.
Straw poll, who wants to take a vote tonight?
Right.
Instead of waiting?
Right.
Okay, so if you're home, raise your hand if you would like to take a vote tonight on this, and if you're in the chamber, raise your hand if you'd like to take a vote on this. So we've got 4 in the chamber, and 1 at home is 5, so I guess
Mr. Chair, can I be heard on this item, on that request?
Sure, go ahead.
It's now 9:48. We have another matter before us. This is not a single-family home where we're going to have, we have a standard board order. I mean, I think it's, with all respect to Councilor Greenberg, I just don't think it's appropriate for us to be voting on this without having a number of questions answered and a full and complete board order that incorporates all of that. And I don't think that's an undue request. So if it's the will of my colleagues to vote this out tonight, so be it. But I just think this is the type of process that we should not be following. Period. Thank you.
Well, it's a process it's fine to take a poll and take the will of the committee if they choose to move forward.
So we're now doing business yet again at 10:30 at night. Okay.
We were having a side meeting, Councilor Laredo, and we were debating just that, whether or not it was too late with one more to come up and whether we should hold it or not. And it was going back and forth. So know that what you're thinking about was on our minds, and it was almost what was chosen to do. I do not feel, you make reference of questions to be answered. I don't know if anybody has any questions to be answered. If you do have questions to be answered, please put them in writing and get them to planning. So I'm going to go back to Councilor Greenberg.
Yes.
What's the
A
will?
motion to approve.
So you'd like to move forward with that?
Yes, please.
Okay, and close the public
I will
hearing?
close the public hearing. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve by Councilor Greenberg. Correct? Yes, we do. Mr. Gleba, can we look at a council order?
Okay, hopefully you see this. So it's in Word format, as we've seen from time to time. Findings.
Mr. Gleba, can you make that bigger at all?
Michael, are you also able to remove the paragraph references, the sort of editing mode?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Here are the findings. Appropriate location. Mixed use nature of the neighborhood, other multi-families. Not create a nuisance. The alteration and extension of non-conforming setbacks would not be more substantially detrimental to the existing ones. The parking waivers are appropriate because little compliance is impracticable due to the size and width of the lot. Those are findings. Conditions all pretty standard. The highlighted dates would be updated with the new plans. Presumably all the same drawings. FAR of 1.41, standard O&M language, standard pest and rodent language, standard CMP language. Responsible for
May I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Where's the undergrounding of utilities in here?
It typically isn't a project of this size, but as Mr. Lee said, as we've done before, there is a review of how many poles and what that would entail, and is the cost unreasonable, just like we did on Jackson Street. Mr. Gleba, what do you think about that?
Mr. Chair, on Jackson Street, we had to amend because it was not reasonable. We haven't seen any examination here whatsoever yet.
Chair.
Excuse me, Ms. Wewell, go ahead.
No, I think maybe Attorney Temple and I may be saying the same thing, but we do have a condition that allows for best efforts to underground utilities from the building to the right of way. Jonah, is that what you're going to say?
No, the condition that we usually include, I'm not sure if it's for this size project, but it is to underground the utilities from the pole to the property, but it does not require putting the actual pole underground. It's just the wires going from the pole to the property. That's a standard condition that we have. I'm not sure if we usually use it for a project this size, but we certainly could consider it.
Is it in this board order?
It was not in the draft I saw earlier today.
Is there any objection to putting that in?
If I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Lee.
Yeah, I do agree that for a project this size, that's not been a traditional condition. For Jackson Street that Mr. Chair referred to, that was a 12-unit project. So that was, and we did come back to amend it simply because there were a lot of poles and it was more complicated than we thought it was going to be. But
But Lawrence, just to
Mr.
clarify
Mr.
that
Lee,
for
if I-
everyone, that was a different condition. That was a condition about undergrounding the utilities along the frontage, which would have required the poles themselves to go away underground. That's not the
that's right.
condition being discussed now.
Oh, I understood. Okay, so if it's undergrounding particularly to our site, I think that's a clarification that we can perhaps consider. I think that's.
Well, we can't perhaps consider it if we're going to approve a board order tonight. So are we going to agree to it or not?
Mr. Lee, it's probably one pole, undergrounding from that pole under the sidewalk to the property.
Yeah, I'm looking at the site map right now. That's what it appears to be. So I think I'm going to be okay with that.
Okay, so we'll
thank
put
you.
that in. Planning okay with that?
Yeah, we can work with the law department on that language.
Great, thank you. Continue.
Okay, standard vibration control language.
May I ask another question, Mr. Chair?
Always.
With construction management, just as you pointed out that the off-ramp to Route 9 was a very difficult area to operate in, clearly Adams Street is as well. Are we going to have a condition here that all vehicles must be on site?
Mr. Lee?
I'm open to that. I think my client had already started discussions with the Suns, which is a very logical place to help us stage construction. So I think we may end up.
We can put that in as a requirement that no construction vehicles will be on the street or the sidewalk. They'll all be contained either on site or through some
Yes.
rental arrangement.
Yes, let's add that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Continue.
Can I just note some additional conditions that I don't think are in this order, but that were discussed tonight, being
Yes.
around all electric, and then the additional funds, 5,000 for traffic calming, 5,000 for affordable housing trust.
Excellent.
So may I comment on that, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
So I applaud my colleague from Ward 1 for negotiating a payment from a petitioner like this, insofar as we're going to get some benefits for the city, which is always good. However, as a matter of public policy, I continue to feel that those types of negotiations, and I'm not saying that anything at all was done improper or wrongly here. Quite the contrary, our practice has been to do exactly what Councilor Greenberg has done. However, I think as a matter of public policy, this is a very bad public policy. We need, and I hope this committee discusses specific requirements that we have when someone comes in as to what mitigation is going to be, and do not have ad hoc amounts of money designated without, based on a particular project and what a particular council from a particular ward can negotiate with a particular developer. I don't think that's good for the developers. I don't think that's good for the city, and has a risk of creating some very bad public policy. And I want to be very clear. I'm not being critical of my colleague from Ward 1, quite the contrary. But as a matter of going forward, I don't think this is good. Thank you.
Okay, we do have an item that we're going to be talking about, maybe even on the 28th, about getting a little bit more structure on this, Councilor Laredo, correct?
We do, and I'll certainly look forward to us taking it up then. This is an illustration of why I think we strongly need it.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Councilor Downs. Unmute.
I'm getting back in the, sorry, I'm
Go
very
ahead.
jet lagged, so I'm having a little trouble here with all the controls. I'm just raising my hand to agree with Councilor Laredo on that last point.
Councilor Bowman.
I was just going to say that I think these are small dollar amounts, and we frequently, even on projects smaller than this, ask developers to plant trees on neighboring properties or to put up fencing. So, this was to address some specific concerns of the neighbors. And it's just, I don't see this particular use And I joined Councilor Greenberg in support for these particular items. So.
Okay, thank you. We've got Councilor Markowitz now. It's 5 of 10. I do not want to have a debate on this. We're going to have it on the 28th. So let's be specific.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to debate, and I haven't said a word up until now.
No, I understand. I'm not shutting you down. I just had to say that.
I've got the flu, so I'm suffering through this myself. But I would just, I want to make a comment about the mitigation funds. And really, it's another to-do for us. I'm not sure, $5,000 is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. I don't actually know the account this goes into. I should look in, and I will look into that. But I think going forward, as these may become more common, I know there are other projects that are going on in my own ward where there's some negotiations with developers about making mitigation payments. Good stuff. It's great to have these contributions, but I wonder how I'm going to say, and I don't mean this in so much a fiduciary sense, but a stewardship sense, as saying who's going to remember this stuff is out there, kind of keep up with it, and be able to report it. So I think that's something we need to make sure that we satisfy ourselves as these types of things may become more common, that we do in fact have a straight up process that says, okay, this is how we do these types of things, so we don't lose track of them, and so that we can make sure they go where they were intended to go based on the discussions we have in a committee like this. So editorial comment, but I think it's important, and I will make sure that we follow that up. But I hope the rest of you will join me in making sure that we do take care of that.
Thank you very much, and I think that's going to be woven into some other of our conversations.
And that was value add, wasn't it?
No, that was fine, Councilor Markowitz. You understand I have to steer, and I needed to steer it away from us debating.
I know how I can appreciate how difficult it is trying to get this thing done by 10 o'clock.
Thank you.
I'm totally with you there.
Thank you. Okay, can we continue on, please?
Here's the I payments. We've got building permit stage and CO stage, both for sewer work and for other mitigation. You can see those figures there. And pretty much standard building permit condition. Standard CO condition. Maintain landscaping, trash, and we'll add the comments about the MAAB units.
May I ask what the snow removal requirement's going to be here?
The snow removal requirement will be for the association to shovel the area in front of the driveway, and obviously, like everybody else in the city, shovel the sidewalk, I would think.
There's sufficient room on site to store snow on site? Okay.
They need to do, there's green space where they can put the snow if you want to.
What you said about MAAB, could you just repeat that, please?
There was a discussion before about the accessibility of the units in one specific unit. We have language for that.
Is it only one unit that's accessible or more than one?
I believe
both units will be Group 1 MAAB.
Two
so
units.
Both units, correct, in the back.
So that's going to be what's included in the orders, that both those units are subject to MAAB requirements?
Group 1 requirements, correct.
And the elevator, is that getting built or is it just a possibility?
For the two Group 1, that elevator will be built with that unit.
What about the other elevator was mentioned for the townhouses?
So each of the townhouses, we have space for them. If the owners in the future wish to install, there is a space carved out that they can put an elevator in.
But they're not going to be built at the time of construction.
Correct, unless they want it at that time.
That's something to their own taste. It's not a necessity.
Well, I understand that. I'm just raising the question, Chair Lipoff. Thank you.
Okay, we have a council order in front of us. We have a motion to approve by Councilor Greenberg. Please call the roll. Mr. Warren?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Councilor Bowman.
Aye.
Councilor Downs.
Aye.
Councilor Greenberg.
Aye.
Councilor Kelly.
Aye.
Councilor Laredo.
Abstain?
Councilor Lipoff.
Aye.
Councilor Lucas.
Abstain.
Councilor Markowitz.
Abstain.
The motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item, 42-23, 176 River Street, request to allow rear lot subdivision at 176 River Street. Miss Clement, why don't you go first?
Sure thing. Okay, this is petition number 4223, a special permit for 176 River Street. The petitioners are proposing to subdivide the lot to create 2 lots and construct a single-family dwelling on each of those 2 lots. There's only one element of relief needed here, which is to allow a rear lot subdivision. In reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site is an appropriate location for the proposed rear lot subdivision, if the proposed subdivision as developed and operated will adversely affect the neighborhood, if there'll be a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, and if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. The ordinance also provides additional criteria for rear lot subdivisions in particular, and that includes whether the proposed buildings or structures exceed the respective average height of abutting residential buildings and structures used for accessory purposes, whether the scale is in line with adjacent buildings, differences in topography between proposed buildings and adjacent residential buildings, proposed landscape screening, adequacy of vehicular access, whether any historic or conservation public benefit is provided or advanced by the proposed project, whether the location of structures used for accessory purposes or mechanical equipment will negatively impact the proposed rear lot development or abutting properties, siting of the proposed building with reference to abutting residences, and the impact of proposed lighting on abutting properties. The property is located on River Street in the SR3 zone in West Newton. The property abuts residences to the northwest and south. Most of the surrounding area is also zoned SR3, with some parcels zoned public use BU1 and MR2 to the east. And this area is predominantly residential with single and smaller multifamily dwellings, with the exception of the nearby River Street playground. This is the existing site plan. The site consists of 25,202 square feet of unimproved land, and the eastern property line has 93 feet of frontage on River Street. There was a single-family dwelling on the site that received a demo permit in 2022 and was raised. Vehicular access is provided via a single curb cut on River Street, leading to a paved driveway that runs much of the length of the parcel. This is the proposed conditions. The petitioner is proposing to subdivide the lot, which would result in a front lot with 10,152 square feet, which would be improved with a single family dwelling, and on the rear lot, which would be 15,050 square feet, another single family dwelling. In order to subdivide the land, the applicant requires a special permit. Both of the proposed dwellings meet all of the applicable dimensional controls for SR3, including setbacks, lot coverage, and open space. The front lot would have an FAR of 0.41, where a maximum of 0.41 is allowed, and the rear lot would be proposed at 0.24, where up to 2.4 is allowed. And vehicle access would still be via that curb cut on River Street, and the driveway would connect to attached garages on each of the two dwellings. On the rear lot, there would be a round sort of donut shaped drive, and there would also be an offshoot for where cars could turn around as well. The site plan doesn't show any mechanical equipment on the exterior of either dwelling, so the department would request that if any mechanical equipment that would be visible on the exterior is planned, that the plans just be updated to show that location. So these are the elevations for the single family on the front lot. This is the one that will be closer to River Street. A maximum height of 36 feet and up to 2.5 stories is allowed by right in SR3. And this is proposed at 33.2 feet and 2.5 stories. The rear lot also complies. It is proposed at 31.5 feet and 2.5 stories. And this house is designed with a front porch, 5 bedrooms, and an attached garage on the left side of the residence with space for 2 cars. This is the rear lot. It has a smaller FAR than the building on the front lot. It is slightly subordinate in height as well, just a bit shorter than the building in the front. This home also has 5 bedrooms, a patio, and it has a front-facing garage. This is the proposed landscape plan showing the trees and other plantings that would run along the new lot lines. Both lots do comply with the dimensional requirements for lot coverage and open space. The front lot will have a lot coverage of 24.8%, where a max of 30% is allowed, and the rear lot will have 17.3%, where up to 25% is allowed. In the engineering memo, the associate study engineer did note that the 20-foot wide access road seems a bit excessive for a single family dwelling and suggested that it be reduced to 15 feet, which would generate less runoff. And in terms of the plantings here, it would include 15 new evergreen trees that would serve as screening between the front and rear lots, and some deciduous shrubs, and a number of other trees on the site. And a 6-foot tall vinyl fence is proposed to serve as screening along the southern property line. And that's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you very much. And is this Terry Morris?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening again, Mr. Morris.
Good evening to you and members of the committee. Thank you once again, Ms. Kemet, for a comprehensive presentation. There's not a lot to say after that. I think the memo that was produced emphasizes the importance of compliance with all of the dimensional standards that are set forth in the ordinance, whether it's floor area ratio, setbacks, lot coverage, open space, and height of the buildings. There were a couple of comments made with respect in the planning department memo about the location for accessory structures. And there was also a comment referred to by Mr. Daglian in his memo about the width of the driveway. I think it's appropriate for me to turn that microphone over to Mr. Vern Porter, who is the project engineer, who will address both of those concerns. Vern?
Hello, Vern Porter, offices 354 Elliott Street. Thank you. Looking at John's memo, the plan does say 20-foot wide access and utility easement. There's a lot of lines on there, and I think there was some confusion. The utility easement is 20 feet wide, but the driveway is actually 12 feet wide. Just so we're clear, it's 12 feet and it's 12 feet around the circle. And the curb cut is existing is 38 feet, where our plans propose it to be closed to 15 feet. So, which is what Mr. Daglian had suggested. So you can see on this plan that Terry put up, the access easement is the dashed lines, excuse me, which is the 20 feet. The driveway is only 12 feet wide. Curb cut will be 15 feet wide. We do have a construction entrance, which he talked about. We do have a 15 by 20 construction entrance, which will keep the mud and the wheels from the trucks clean before they leave. He did mention testing. When I did the testing, I tried to, we don't know where the drainage is going when we do the testing. So we tested it, the three corners of the area, and we found the soil to be very consistent, coarse, sandy gravel. So although we can clearly do another test before we do the actual installation, it's my experience that that whole area and our entire site will be that coarse, sandy gravel. So I'm not concerned with that at all. And I think that was everything he had addressed. And I think we have answers to that there on the plans.
Thank you, Vern. I think this is our one, if everyone can see this is the area plan. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
I think it's important because as we know, in rear lot subdivisions, one of the concerns that many people have is that when you have a rear lot subdivision, it can be, depending upon the neighborhood and the locus, it can be considered a development in someone's backyard that impacts other people's backyards. I think that's why it's particularly significant to show this area plan, which is a more recent requirement under the ordinance to provide the distances between the house on the rear lot and adjacent structures, and also the heights of those structures shown on this plan. There is significant separation between the house on the rear lot and the nearest houses to the site. It's important to note also that I know that the committee is concerned about reaching out to neighbors that Mr. DePasquale, who's also on screen tonight, can attest to the fact he did speak to at least these two people here who are the closest abutters on the rear, whose own property on Smith Court, one of whom is on screen tonight, I believe, as well. So I think that, Mr. Chairman, we don't need to have our architectural team present the plans. I think that, as I said, Ms. Kemet did a laudable job, and so we can really right now move to the second phase of the hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and that's one of the reasons why we have made the change in committee and go to planning first. It makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. So we're going to go to the public now. If you want to speak, please raise your virtual hand so I can call on you. You have 2 minutes. State your name and address if there's anybody from the public that wishes to speak. I do not see anybody, so we're going to go into the council. Councilor Markowitz.
Thank you, Chair. This is Councilor Kelly's ward, so I'll let her deal with the procedural things. When I first saw this, I was like, But, I live in the area, and there's a lot of funky lots down River Street. This is a pretty big lot. So you look at the way they're trying to do this and how it's set off, and it sort of fits the neighborhood. I think it's great. You get a couple of new houses in there. So for my looking at this, I don't really, unless there's some other technical thing like we've had in a couple of the earlier ones today, I don't see anything wrong with this, and it seems to make sense to me. So
thank you.
I'll support it.
Thank you very much, Councilor Markowitz. When I look at a rear lot subdivision, it's got to have enough land. Box checked. It can't be a fishbowl affecting multiple homes surrounding the rear of the lot. Check that box. You don't want to come in and ask for any relief whatsoever, because you only should have the right to do this, in my estimation, if it really fits into everything.
Yeah, I'm not normally a big fan of these, but this one, it's like, again, if you looked at the geometry, a lot of the other lots around there's some funky stuff going on there anyway, the way they connect to each other. So you look at this and you say, it's sort of, it just carries through the pattern that's already there. That's not a bad thing. It just fits, it makes
That's
sense.
right. Yeah. I think we all have a high standard, a high bar when it comes to rear lot subdivisions, and this one to me meets it all. Councilor Kelly?
Thank you. I like that we're now including that sort of contextual map showing the neighborhood context and the texture and the scale around it. It's really helpful. Second only to going out there in person, which I did today. And the only issue I would have had has already been cleared up, and it was that 15, 20-foot wide driveway, which is not. I'll say too that, excuse me, not only does it meet all the dimensional controls So I don't, there's really nothing to complain about on my end here. I like that it's set back from the houses. Mr. Morris, I appreciate you mentioning the neighbor contacts again, but I will say it looks like you really have 5 or 6 abutting neighbors, not just 2. But I think it's probably all been taken care of. Another thing I'll just point out to people is there's a bus stop right in front of this property. There's a playground diagonally across the street. It's a really good location for this kind of development. I would be happy to make a motion to close the public hearing and approve this as soon as we're ready.
I think we're ready. Unless there's other counselors, I think we're good with this. We have a motion to close the public hearing by Councillor Kelly. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve by Councillor Kelly. Can we take a look at a council order, Ms. Kemet?
And I'm muted. So for findings, we have 1, the site is an appropriate location for the proposed rear lot subdivision because the proposed new front and rear lots will be used as single-family dwellings and allowed use in the district. 2, the proposed mixed-use project, oops, it should not be mixed use, sorry about that, I can fix that, will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the project meets the dimensional standards of the ordinance. The proposed project will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. Access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. The height of the proposed rear dwelling, 31.5 feet, is similar to that of abutting residential buildings. 6, the massing and scale of the proposed single-family dwelling on the front lot and the rear lot will be in character and consistent with adjacent existing and allowed residential structures in the surrounding SR3 zoning district. 7, differences in the relative dwelling heights between the proposed rear dwelling and structures on abutting properties are due to the neighborhood's topography. 8, the proposed landscape plan includes the extensive installation of trees and other vegetation which will screen the dwellings from abutting residential properties. 9, adequate vehicular access is provided by a curb cut on River Street. 10, the project provides a conservation public benefit because the project includes new plantings and landscaping as indicated in the landscape plan. 11, mechanical equipment on the rear lot or on abutting lots will not negatively impact either the proposed rear lot development or an abutting property. 12, the proposed siting of the front dwelling and the rear dwelling structure are appropriate given the scales and locations of abutting residential structures. And 13, lighting will be residential in character and will not impact abutting properties. And the standard conditions would apply.
Great, thank you very much. Everybody good? All right, Mr. Warren, please call the roll.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Councilor Bowman.
Aye.
Councilor Downs. Councilor Downs. We'll come back.
She may not be here.
Councilor Greenberg.
Aye. Gatner.
Councilor Kelly.
Aye.
Councilor Laredo.
Aye.
Councilor Lipoff.
Aye.
Councilor Lucas.
Aye.
Councilor Markowitz.
Aye.
Councilor Downs. The motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. That concludes our business for tonight. All right, thank you very much. Good luck with your project. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.